Welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with Daliejo. Today I'm joined here with Lucas from Stiles Productions. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
So am I. Well, let's first start off with what exactly is it that you do at Stiles Productions?
Yeah, so I started my own business about a year ago. And it is a video production company. So working with clients, producing commercials, promos for websites, lots of Instagram, Facebook ad, um, and also giving advice on how to run those ads. Yeah, you kind of get the picture. So been making videos for 3-4 years now. And just through the years been moving up in cameras, moving up in gear, getting more clients, and yeah, now we're here trying to do it full time.
Perfect. So first question, what led you to start a video company?
Yeah, so when I was about, I'd say 14, I bought my first DSLR Canon camera because I wanted to film myself on the trampoline. So
I do remember those legendary videos.
yeah, so anyone who knows me for a while knows that I used to do some pretty crazy trampoline tricks. Um, and yeah, I kind of bought a camera because I want to post on Instagram. And then it went from there. I upgraded to a Canon 90D camera. Um, had some better features like 120 FPS, that sort of thing, flip out LCD screen. Those were kind of the two features that gravitated me towards it. And
I've heard a lot about the 90D. It's one of the classic ones that everyone upgrades to. Like when you kind of like start getting into it, that's like the 90D is the one to go for.
Yeah, and I mean it's only 1500, so it's a great middle range camera. And I mean, looking back on it now, at that point in my life, I did not know very much about cameras at all, but
you kind of got lucky with what you picked.
I got extremely lucky. And I think some of those features that it had and the possibilities that it could give me led to some of the first client work that I did.
That makes sense. So another question, why did you choose to go straight into it instead of getting any sort of like certification or anything? Or did you not see any reason to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely think there's value in getting education, whether that be film school or any sort of education. I also think we're in a very different time than we were 50 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, in terms of job opportunities and creativity with what job you want to go into, there's much more flexibility with obviously the digital age. You all know it if you're listening to this.
I mean, just think like we're doing a podcast right now. This was not a thing 20 years ago, not even close. So
yeah, and neither 50 years ago, neither would a social media campaign person. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, like every company now has like an entire social media team on them. So like that's pretty big.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, back to the question. I chose to go straight into building my own business because for what I do, working with clients and communicating through video, I think the whole idea is showing someone your work. Showing someone a certification, in my opinion, for my line of work, doesn't mean as much as showing them maybe a documentary that you filmed, edited, color graded, and sent off final product. I think there's a lot of merit in starting a project from start to finish, be able to communicate with a client. And, that's not something everyone learns in film school.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like having like a portfolio where you can showcase everything is pretty big as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Other than that, so what would you say are your like biggest like achievements so far? Like what are some of the biggest things that you've gotten a chance to work on?
Yeah, it's a good question. Depending on when this is released, I'm not sure if I can share some of the bigger projects that I'm working on just because it's under an NDA.
Yeah, for sure.
But working. I'm contracted to a different film company sometimes, just as like a assistant cam op,
Okay.
which is really fun, and it's taught me a lot working with bigger equipment, bigger clients. But yeah, we were up in Penticton a little while ago, shooting some firefighter training, and yeah, it was really interesting. Like, helicopters coming in, all that stuff.
Wow.
It was super sick.
That's pretty cool.
In terms of my own business, probably, I mean, it's not like super far along yet, but probably my biggest achievement so far has been getting a monthly contract with a client for a sum of money that I was happy with.
That's definitely true, especially being someone starting off a business. I think it's a pretty big deal to have some sort of like recurring income that you can depend on every month, rather than, because sometimes you can't really get clients, something slows down or something like that. So having that reliable source of income is really important. Before we get too far into your business and everything, I kind of want to go back a little bit and talk about like your high school career and how that kind of played into how what you're doing right now. Like you kind of mentioned that you were doing like trampoline videos and that sort of thing, but like what in high school and like that entire point of your life, how that influenced what you're doing now.
Yeah, so in high school and even end of middle school, whatever I chose to do, whether that be trampolining or working out or filming, I was very passionate about it. So, when I started trampolining, spending like hours and hours every day watching videos about it, all that stuff. Anyone who's had like a passion that they really want to get good at something probably knows the same feeling. So I think in terms of helping where I got to today, having passion for what I do has helped me a lot. I would say when the pandemic hit, obviously so many things changed. Um, the main one for me probably being not being influenced by other people as much.
That's big, yeah.
So I think in high school, early high school especially, people feel pressured by whether it be their friends or maybe the cooler people in school to be something that they're not, which I think all of us are guilty to an extent. And I think the pandemic, as well as some events that happened in my grade 11 year, definitely helped break some of those social pressures.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I've heard a lot from a ton of people, like the pandemic, as bad as it was for a lot of people, it was something that actually ended up turning out to be very positive, because they were kind of stuck at home, and they were able to really put like a lot of time into their passions, and they were able to really get good at what they were trying to do. And I think that's kind of what you're kind of trying to say, right? You were able to really hone in on what you want to do, and I think the big thing that you mentioned there is you weren't really pressured into like by people around you into what you want to do. You were able to do what you wanted to do, and I think that's really big.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like throughout school, if I cared about something, then I would do good in it. Like, I mean, grade 9, 10, and partly through 11, I had very good grades relative to the rest of the people. Obviously, Pavin is an anomaly. But yeah, I think partway through grade 11, I realized that I had more of a passion for filming than anything else that I had done before. And for me, it's very difficult to go all out in school, whether that be studying or putting in the time, when I have something else that's like so much bigger. And I'm not going at that time. I didn't plan to go to post-secondary, and I still don't. And so I really did not see the benefits of studying for an AP history exam,
Wow, shots fired directly at AP history, man.
Chem 12 as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just like those very, like the very
The
difficult
very
classes.
academic, like rigorous.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Like,
see what you mean.
I definitely could have done well if I'm not saying I did terrible,
Yeah.
but like,
You didn't really put forward what you could have.
yeah, exactly. And I think like some people could make the argument that you should be, whatever you're doing, you should be putting 100% in, but at some point you're probably going to get burned out if you have enough things going on, like working 2 or 3 jobs like I was, as well as school. If you're putting 110% into everything, it's not going to last, no matter who you are. That's my opinion. Um, so yeah, I ended up sacrificing some of my marks. And do I think it's going to affect me at all? No, I don't think at all.
I think that's something really good that you pointed out, that you said putting, like 110% into everything. I feel like a lot of times nowadays you get the narrative of like, oh, like you should do the best you can in everything. And I think that's something really important that you pointed out, is that you should actually focus, what you put time into based on what you're actually interested in and what you think will actually benefit you in the future. And I think that's really good that you point out that you didn't actually see any point in spending so much time in school when you realized that there was no point. Like you weren't going to you weren't going to go to post secondary, so why bother? And I think that's really smart that you end up switching that and continue on with that, as well as you ended up actually finishing school early. Like you don't go to school anymore. So I'm kind of curious how how you made that decision, because that was a pretty big decision for you.
Yeah, it was. But just before we get to that, I want to say, like, I think both me and you have sacrificed social relationships for something greater.
Yeah.
So you taking very academic courses and me focusing more on building my future. I think we both have taken things, not taken things, but we've sacrificed things.
Definitely not just social. Definitely more. But
yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, what was the question again?
So I was just saying, like what led and the decision to leave school early.
Yeah. So I think I found out that I had the opportunity to finish school early about 2 weeks before I made the decision. And yeah, I talked with my parents a lot because obviously they still have a lot of influence over me. Now, I had finished all of the academic courses that I needed. And so the extra courses would have been things like calculus and strength and conditioning. And I didn't feel like it would be worth my time to drive back and forth to school to either take 1 or 2 classes for the rest of the year. But what I told my parents was not that. I told them that I was going to take the first chunk of the 3rd semester off, because right now school is in kind of a split into half days.
A bit of a weird schedule.
Yeah, so you have 1 class in the morning, 1 class in the afternoon. I think I don't go there anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. But,
So yeah, I told them that I would take kind of the next 2.5 months off of school and focus on my business and just working, making some money, right? And then when they asked me what I was taking the next semester, I was like, I'm not going back. I can't.
No.
It just like, I go back sometimes to work out and see my friends and watch events, because like grad is exciting and it doesn't happen. It only happens once. Yeah. And I don't want to miss that for sure. But spending 7 hours at school every day, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's fair, especially with what you've got going on. And so leading into that, do you see the benefits of you having left school early? Like, do you see those benefits directly in the business that you're running?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, obviously the time that I have now to focus on solely my business and working a retail job as well. But primarily those are my 2 focuses. Now, in the business aspect, there is a number of things that branch out from that. It's it's more complicated than just saying a business. There's investments, finances, um, building clientele, branding yourself. Like all of these things are things that I have to learn by myself. Not saying that I don't watch YouTube videos on how to do all these things, because I definitely watch a lot of tutorials, but it's something that you have to do for the first time and, experience it, which again leads back to why I didn't go to school, is because I think experiential learning is by far the best.
I agree 100%.
Especially in the field that I'm going into.
Yeah, your field is actually very unique in that sense. I was actually going to talk to you about that later, but yeah.
Because like I think you're going to computer science, and yeah, of course you can't learn that by yourself sitting at home. You can, but it's very difficult, and it's worth your time and money to go to school. It makes complete sense to me. For me, I can learn as much or more about something very specific in the realm of filming. Whereas if I were to go to film school, I would have to take a lot of unnecessary courses, like focusing on broadcast TV, which I do not care about, right?
Yeah.
Because I know my cousin actually went to film school. And yeah, he had to take a whole bunch of classes about, just broadcast TV. And that is not at all what he wanted to do. So you're definitely, again, you're paying for something that it benefits you, but not in the way that you were hoping. Because I think all learning benefits you to some extent. And the fact that you're taking the time to learn and grow is beneficial no matter what you do. Like if I took psychology or history, it would benefit me in the fact that I'm learning how to learn.
Yeah.
But it's not going to benefit me the way that I would hope.
Yeah, it's not necessarily relevant or something that you really need ever. Okay. I really liked what you said about like learning through experience. I think that's one of the biggest things. I think I'm sure you've heard this as well, but like no matter how much you really prepare for something, you can never really get like into it unless you actually try it. And there's always so much nitty-gritty stuff that goes into whatever it is that you're doing that you have to try it in order to be able to realize what you're trying to do. Like even with myself, with like trying to record, like even today I've already changed certain things from the last podcast where I was able to figure out like multi-track audio so I can actually edit the videos, like the audio better and things like that. Like those things I would have never guessed would even be an issue if I hadn't ever tried it. So I think that's really big, especially like you mentioned in your industry where what you're going into, it's all about experience and really learning what to do, and having people to guide you, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and that's why I think I've been very fortunate in the fact that a bigger film company has kind of contracted me for some of their jobs, and being able to work with people who are 30, 35, who have been in the industry for 15 years is incredibly beneficial, because I can learn so much from the mistakes that they had to make when starting their own business.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is like having like a mentor who can like very clearly show you the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and be able to instead like so that you can have that information that they got from making the mistake without having to make the mistake. I think that's one of the biggest things. Now, the other thing that I was gonna get into is like with like what you mentioned is like getting out of school and continuing on with the business. Do you see that you're having like without like you kind of mentioned earlier, like you don't have like the social pressure anymore of like having people around you who don't like they just thought differently. Do you see that not having them there is better, or like that kind of makes, I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but
No, I understand, I think.
like was it good to get out of that environment, if is what I'm kind of trying to say?
I would say it was, to the extent that there was lots of people who you know the type, they ask you questions where it's just trying to provoke a response out of you.
Yeah, like gaslighting you a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think there are some times where I definitely do not miss the school environment at all. Especially, I know I was this once upon a time by having grade nines in high school,
Yeah.
and even like any grade younger, they are so many of 99% of them are insanely immature, and every time I walk back into CSS, it's like, wow, yep, I remember this, and it has not been that long. But I also miss a lot of people too. So I miss having social interaction every day because a lot of the work that I do, if I'm not on a film set, is editing in a room alone. So I definitely miss having, just social events at school, like intramurals, or talking to people at lunch, stuff like that. I really miss, but um, it's going to be worth it in the long run, I think.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think it's always like those little things that you don't like. I feel like you've probably now noticed how much those little side conversations at lunch or whatever are probably like how big those were for you. Um, the other thing that I was gonna say is like you kind of mentioned like the immaturity. I think when you're doing something so different, I would say like you doing something very like innovative. I think that it can definitely be like the status quo is always to do good in school and go into post secondary. And I think it must be good to kind of get out of that and be able to think the way you want to think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think building on that, I was very fortunate to have parents who didn't try and push me to go to post secondary because I know a lot of people, my friends who are doing very well in school, are also very pressured by their parents. Um, and it's not the worst thing because if you don't have disciplinary parents, then
Things don't go well.
yeah. Yeah. And a lot of kids don't have drive and just don't have really, I'm not saying that they don't have purpose, but they feel like they don't have purpose in their life.
Sure.
And yeah, you definitely see a lot of different types of people in high school, but being being able to pursue what I wanted to um, right out of the gate, even before I graduated, um, I'm very thankful for that. Um, my parents have helped me buy certain equipment for the business. For example, my MacBook that still has not arrived, and I ordered 4 months ago. Um, they, since I don't have a credit card yet, they put that on their credit card, and then I pay them back. It's just small things, and I mean, it's $5,000, so it's not like a small $200 whatever you're putting on a credit card. It's like $5,000 worth. And if they didn't have the financial security to be able to buy something like that for me and then have me pay them back, or even the trust in me that I would pay them back.
That's true.
It's just little things like that where I think me building respect and trust between my parents has definitely benefited me right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have to agree with that as well. I mean, personally, I've been able to choose, what I wanted to do, and I think that's very liberating. That you can, really whatever it is that you want to do, it's nice that you're able to pursue that. I think like one thing I want to kind of expand on is you said like that it's nice to have like a lot of people like you said that sometimes in high school don't really have like drive. So how did you choose to find people that had drive? Like, did you look for that in other people?
When when I'm becoming friends with someone, I don't necessarily, that's not the first thing I think about.
Okay.
I think I was very fortunate again to go through middle school and high school with people who shared a similar mindset to me just by getting lucky, right? Like when I became friends with Dylan and Carter, like they're great people. And for a long time we shared very similar mindsets. Um, not necessarily about business, just about like other things like um, school, not doing drugs, that
Yeah,
sort of
that's a big
stuff.
one. Yeah.
I wasn't gonna say that, but
I mean,
well,
fair point, man.
yeah,
High school is a weird place.
yeah. I think I was very fortunate to grow up with those people, and I think my parents also know. They've mentioned this multiple times that I did have a very good group of friends who they trusted and who I trusted had good interests for me in their mind. Now I'm not as close with them as I used to be, which is totally fine. Um, I think we've definitely everyone moves on to their own life, which is totally cool. Um, and yeah, not going to school has definitely broken off some of those friendships. But again, if they share a similar mindset to me, like you, Pavin, for example, we still text very regularly about exactly the same thing that we did when we talked about in school. So nothing has really changed there. And the people who want to stay in contact will stay in contact. So, but yeah, to fully answer your question, I do think that surrounding yourself with people um, who share similar values to you is extremely important because if you don't, it's very hard to uphold those values. Like, there's tons of people who I've been friends with over the year that like to party and, like to smoke weed, which is, again, it's totally fine. It's their decision. But it's very difficult to share a close bond with someone who does something that I would never do. And that's totally fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing I was gonna kind of go into is what was I thinking of? Is like I think it's really important to have like the confidence to like what you did where you said like you're able to move on. I think that's kind of important. Sometimes people get they get a little scared to leave certain relationships because they're comfortable in them. Whether or not they're good for them or not is a completely different conversation. Or like they don't even have to be bad, but they might be holding you back in a sense where you don't feel like you're able to pursue what you want to pursue, or their mindset is holding back from what you want to do. So I think that's really important that what you mentioned is you were able to kind of move away from that. And the other thing that you mentioned as well is like having people around you that kind of share the same thing. I think especially with people like especially like people like that are like Debbie Downers, I think are something that like I really try to stay away from. Like if they're taking away from like if they can't reciprocate the energy that you have where you're optimistic about, the future and have plans and really have goals and a purpose and something you want to go and chase after, compared to people who like, we all know like there's some people that just kind of live day by day. They don't really care or have any plans for the future and they're just kind of going, and that's pretty much it. Like there's really not much going on there. I think it's important to surround yourself by people that do kind of share that same mindset. And moving on, like kind of continuing on from there, from like future plans. What other future plans do you have for yourself other than your business?
Yeah, the business is definitely going to be my main focus for the foreseeable future. Um, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see, in the next 5 years where it goes. I can't wait. But I'm also excited to get on with my life.
Yeah.
I'm turning 18 now, and there's lots of things you can't do before you're 19. For example, like investing, all that stuff, credit cards.
Thankful for British Columbia, man. 19 years old, age of majority, not 18.
Yeah, it sucks, and the struggle.
Yep,
But
that's true.
yeah, I'm excited for those things. I'm excited to start learning how to invest, all that stuff. I'm also excited to travel. I'm hoping with this line of work, I will be able to get some jobs, in different countries or, further away. And even if I can't, being able to go like on a road trip, for example, to Oregon, which I did a couple months ago, and document the whole process and, make a video that I really love. It's super cool. And I hope I can keep doing that. So travel is a huge one. Um, Iceland, Norway, lots of different European countries, Finland. I almost went to be an exchange student in Norway, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I would have been leaving in a month, actually. So
That's pretty crazy.
I turned that opportunity down to focus on my business. The funds, I wanted to fund more equipment instead of going away, which I know different people will have different opinions about it, but at this point in my career, I thought that it was the right thing to do. Um, so yeah, travel is a huge one. Um, and also just like seeing where my friends are at. Like I'm excited to see how you do in school, and I'm excited to see like your future endeavors, all that stuff.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends, Ethan Lucier, he wants to start his own car shop, which I think is amazing. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And then, of course, moving out, hopefully in the next, how old am I? 17, 18? In the next 4 or 5 years, I hope that I can buy a house. And yeah, that's the goals. What about you though? Like, what are your future plans? I want to hear.
I mean, as of right now, to be honest, I mean, just go to university for the time being. I've gotten accepted into UBC, and I'm just gonna kind of go into there for the computer engineering program, and that should take about 5 years. The first year you go into like general studies, and then you choose your major, which I'm planning on doing computer engineering, and then so you get another 2 years. So year 2 and year 3 you do as like learning, and then year 4, like in between year 3 and 4, so you can do co-op. So then you can go out and work and get some good work experience, and then you come back for year 5 and just finish off your degree, and then you're pretty much good to go. I mean, for now, that's really all that I'm kind of focusing on, to be honest, because that's going to be quite a bit to take on, especially first year, because it's quite a transition.
Yeah.
Not only just like moving out. Obviously, Vancouver's not the closest place to here, so I'll probably be there for a lot of it. So just being away from home and just kind of adjusting to that, adjusting to all how learning in a university environment is obviously going to be pretty different. And yeah, just like making new connections. I think I'm really excited for that. Is the biggest thing is, especially university. It's like it's such a different place than high school, and I'm really excited to find people that have that same kind of drive. Like compared to high school, there's going to be a lot more people that share that kind of mindset. So I'm really excited for that. And I mean, after that, we'll see, we'll see how it goes. Especially because like with co-op and everything, I'm curious, where I'm able to get a position, and from there I might be able to get myself into like a really good position right out of university.
Yeah, yeah, that's exciting. Do you have any like what would be the best job that you could imagine,
That's a good question.
or would it be starting your own business?
See, it's a bit of both. I don't think I would immediately want to start my own business. I would definitely want experience within a company and seeing how that works, especially, now I would definitely want to see that. I'm not too sure where I'd want to be. I guess it would kind of depend on what I'm like offered. That's what I was kind of mentioning. Like I'll have to see with what co-op has to offer and go from there. I mean, I just want like a place that isn't like because like a lot of companies, like I feel like tech companies are a little bit better on this, but like a lot of like companies in general have to have like the like the corporate ladder, and like you gotta like climb the rungs and all that. And I just don't really see the need for that. Like I feel like it should be very open, and just like you should have direct contact with like the higher ups, and you shouldn't have like all that bureaucracy and all that stuff. Like I just want like a company that I can work with, that it's easy to like, not easy to work with, like I have engaging work, and I'm able to actually like make a difference within the company. I don't want to be like just one of the like millions of people that are just kind of working away, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like maybe a smaller company that can still pay you lots.
Pretty much.
So you still build
Yeah.
connections.
Or I was thinking like any Elon Musk company. I don't know if you've looked into that, but like the way Elon Musk like runs a lot of his companies are very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of like, there's meetings. Like I know with him, like a big thing is he's like, if you don't see value in this meeting, just leave. Like go back to work. Like I don't need you here. So like I like that kind of stuff I really appreciate, and like him too, like every worker in his companies has like direct contact with them. So like if anyone ever has an issue with like what they, if they have an issue with like what the management is making in terms of decisions and stuff for the company, people can directly voice their concern, which I think in a lot of companies with, there's like a lot of red tape on like, oh, you can't question this, like you can't do that. If you question this, you're going to get fired, like, that sort of thing. So I think having someone who can actually take critical feedback and actually be able to put that into the company, I think is really big.
That's a good point. I think with lots of huge corporations, I mean, it's so clear to see how long things take to get done.
Yeah.
I remember YouTube and making their all social media platforms, but YouTube in general, making their changes, like taking away the dislike button.
Yeah.
It's not like a 1 day process. Like they obviously think of all the possibilities, and they know that people are going to hate it.
Mm-hmm.
They might not know that people are going to hate it that much, but it's just like, are they going to go back? Well, it's if they ever do, it's going to take so long to move up the corporate ladder. Yeah. And that's the same thing with a lot of issues, right? And like Instagram experimenting with all their stupid, like promoting videos only. Photographers are getting destroyed. It's like,
also, have you seen like where you get like the promoted posts where like randomly in your feed you get some random post, and I'm like, why is this here?
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah. Just like, yeah. Now, on the topic of Elon Musk, what do you think of Elon Musk?
I mean, he's an interesting character, to be honest. I hold a lot of respect for him, like big time. I think what he does, and I just, the thing that I think I like about the most about him is his transparency, and like that's, I think, what I was trying to get at with like where I'd want to work, is I want a place that's very transparent, and like that's kind of why he likes to like have direct contact with everyone and be able to like just make decisions quicker and like actually be able to work towards a good product. Like I feel like a lot of companies just focus on what is our share price looking like, are our investors like liking what we're doing and things like that, and like they don't really care about making a proper good like product or service. And I think that's the biggest thing that I have respect for Elon Musk. Like I'm sure you've heard about when he made like SpaceX, like how their rockets were failing and they literally had the last attempt to actually have a rocket that worked, and it did. And like things like that where, and like even for SpaceX, he ended up becoming the chief engineer because he couldn't find a good chief engineer.
That's so funny.
Because he's literally like, they all suck. And like, that's what I like about him. He's just like, they were all bad and I couldn't find a good person, so I just became chief engineer. Like things need to get done, so I'll just do it.
It's like that Thanos meme where it's like, fine, I'll do it myself. Exactly. That's literally Elon Musk.
That's literally Elon Musk, and like things like that. So that's what I have respect for him, is like he genuinely has good ideas and he's constantly like working towards, especially for like what he does too, is he works a lot for improving humanity and like moving the civilization forward, especially with like trying to go to Mars and everything. He's trying to make us an interplanetary species and things like that, and working on things like Neuralink so that he can help people with like
spinal issues and like brain issues.
Even beyond that, once that's done, he wants to connect directly to computers and make it faster for people to like, instead of using a mouse and keyboard, which is really slow, to like directly connect into a computer and just like immediately be able to have that interface and things like that. Like everything that he does is he's trying to help people's lives, and I have very big respect for that.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I also really like 90% of the things that he does.
There's always that little bit.
Yeah, like it's definitely like, he's obviously eccentric, which is good for what he does, because you need to be eccentric to be able to do that many things. Like I remember watching or just seeing a YouTube video about like what 1 week in his life looks like. Like flying back and forth to SpaceX headquarters, Tesla headquarters, and like sleeping on the floors in them. Like what $200 billion man does that?
Dude, his work ethic is something else. Like I was listening to him like talk about it too, and he like talks about how he has literally like 5-minute chunks of every day planned out. Every 5 minutes is planned out. Like he even like doesn't like to spend time eating. Like he'll spend 5 minutes eating and just go. Like it's just crazy, like the amount of stuff, and like with how many companies he's managing and stuff like that, it's very, like it's very cool to see that he has even at that level. Like most people, once you hit that level, would probably be like, oh, my management can deal with it. Like I'm not going to deal with it. Whereas with him, he really wants to be involved in every part of it.
Yeah, which I think what you said, like about moving humanity forward, like think about if he never existed, like
So different.
Tesla is, it's not huge, but it's
It's pretty
huge.
big.
Like the fact that, first of all, the fact that Tesla is worth more than every car company combined is insane, which shouldn't it should yeah, it does not, it shouldn't happen, but but even just the sole fact that he's been able to manufacture an electric car that has caught on and that most people really like,
Yeah.
I think that's huge for our future. Um, and that would definitely be my first choice in a car if I had.
Same. That's the first thing I would want to buy is a Tesla.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and yeah, like even the fact, I remember he tweeted about someone tweeted at him to help like Ukraine or something like that because he has so much money, right?
Mhm.
Even though people have no idea how that money
Works. Dude, the amount of people, okay, this is actually something that pisses me off so much all the time, is when people are like, oh, this person has this much money, why don't they just do something? They don't understand how a net income or like a net worth works, because how much of that is assets? The amount of like Elon Musk does not get paid. I think it's from Tesla. He doesn't get paid from Tesla. He has a stock package. So basically he gets paid out stock options. That's all he gets paid out. You can't, stocks aren't worth anything until you sell them. That's not liquid money. You can't just pay that. He doesn't have $300 billion sitting in a bank. That's not how that works.
Yeah, when people say like, oh, why doesn't he solve world hunger? He doesn't have $200 billion to spend. I mean, it's kind of nuts that he bought Twitter, but that's a complete. I love that. That's like, so what a legend.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing I respected for him too, is his humor. Like he's actually just funny.
He is. Like what other billionaire actually has a personality?
Exactly.
Jeff Bezos, super villain.
Actually, though, genuinely, he walks into Amazon headquarters and he's like, "This is great. They're making me money."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I would say the biggest thing with Elon Musk is I really appreciate what he's doing, like especially like with, because engineering can solve so many problems, and I have respect for the fact that he actually applies that and genuinely like tries to help the world.
Yeah, and he has enough influence and money to actually make a difference, like a huge difference. So I think that's cool that he's putting it to use.
Yeah.
But we've probably talked enough about Elon Musk.
Probably.
So real quick before we move on, I have known you pretty well since grade 10.
Yep.
That's when I really started to become friends with you. And I'd say grade 10, grade 11 is when you started to change your life. Yeah. So I want to know what made you do that.
Good question. To be honest, it's kind of similar to what you mentioned. I think that there was a lot, like you mentioned, coming into high school, you have a lot of influence on you from others. And I think that I was kind of just able to break free from that and just be able to focus on what I wanted to do. And especially like you mentioned, the pandemic was a very good time. I remember when school shut down, I was like working a ton and I was able to kind of just do my own thing. And within that time, I had a lot of time to like self-reflect and be able to really know like for myself what I want to do without influence of those around me. And I think that was definitely the biggest thing, is getting into that and like really being able to realize what I want to do. And also, other than that too, like seeing you start your own business as well, I think that was really inspiring for me to be able to see someone else do that and just being like, oh, that's actually possible. And I met quite a few other people as well who I'll have on the podcast later as well, and future episodes, who really inspired that within me. And I was really able to see like, this is possible, this is something I can do. And I think that was honestly the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's cool. That means a lot that I was able to inspire you in some sort of way.
Definitely.
Now, a lot of people, I'd say almost everyone, doesn't understand how much you've changed. I think I'm one of the only people who understand how much you've changed.
Probably.
So I want you to explain a little bit where you what was your starting point in grade 10? Like, who were you, and how did you become who you are today?
Okay, for sure. I mean, to be completely honest, brutally honest, grade 10 me was a little questionable. I was not the most confident person. I mean, the biggest thing that led into that too was I moved out here to Chilliwack in 2017. So I'd only been here for like 2 years at the time. So I really didn't have like a bunch like a lot of friends or anything like that. Like I did, but like I didn't really feel like I had like a good network. And so I think once I really started to become comfortable and like really felt like I was, comfortable in my own shoes, I think that was one of the biggest things. I'm sure that you probably noticed that as well. Um, and then beyond that, I mean, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing is I just really became comfortable with like who I was. And like you mentioned, I just kind of stopped caring what other people really cared about. Like I was just like, like if you don't like me, like that's not my problem. Like I think that was the biggest thing is I was just able to really be able to do what I wanted to do. I think that was the biggest one.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but you've also improved your life in a lot of ways too. So I didn't know you super well at the beginning of grade 10, but I know enough to know that what your daily life looks like now is much different from what it used to look like. So, um, yeah, what's your take on that? Like, how did you come to find how to live your life each day?
Yeah, okay, that's very big. I would say it definitely wasn't an immediate shift. It was very, very gradual, very slow process. Like the biggest thing is, it really takes a long time to really solidify like a habit or like something that you do, like you mentioned, do something like every day is really big. I would say the biggest thing is I kind of just started holding myself accountable to a lot more things. Like when I was younger, I didn't really like not that I didn't like. I mean, as you know, I was always like good in school. It wasn't like I was ever not disciplined, but I think like I really started to put an importance on like self discipline and like holding myself accountable and really tracking what I'm doing and just like refining every day to be the most productive and like the best version of myself. And I think the biggest thing that I really started to focus on was like to be better every day in some way, whether it was like anything I could do to just kind of be better, whatever it was in any aspect. And the other thing that I think the biggest thing that was like really different is I started to focus on my weaknesses instead of my strengths. I think that was the biggest difference maker. Is like instead of just you always hear like double down on your strengths. Like really, if you're good at something, you should be keep refining that. But then what I heard from David Goggins, I think was like the biggest thing that inspired me. He was like, no, like you gotta double down on your weaknesses and like really build yourself up so that you can have actually a solid base in everything. And I think that was the biggest thing. And then other than that, every day like I've started like journaling, as I'm sure you already know, in many different ways. So I've got like multiple different journals. I've got like a gratitude journal. I've got just a general journal. I don't work out anymore at the moment, but when I did, I had like a complete workout journal as well to hold myself accountable for that. And then I also have a daily planner where I plan out half-hour chunks of every day. So I think that's one of the bigger ones as well. And then also I started using Google Calendar. That was a huge one. That is so like honestly, if there's like the biggest thing that I can recommend to anyone right now, start using Google Calendar. It is the most useful thing you will do, especially if you can put like the widget on your home screen where you can like scroll through all the stuff. Super useful. At a glance, you can immediately tell, okay, this is what I've got to do. And like even like before I go to bed every night, like I'll always double check like, okay, what am I doing tomorrow? So I can like hit the ground running immediately. Like I know what to do.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And Google Calendar is a great tool, but it's not the solution. Like you need to, in my opinion, planning. I love planning, and planning is so important. Like you mentioned, being able to get up in the morning and know what you're doing. It's a little bit easier if you work like a 9 to 5 or go to school 5 days a week, because you kind of know what your day looks like for the first 8 hours.
Yeah, you've got a schedule built for you. It's
Yeah.
different. It's different when you've got to build it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, when I went out of school, that was one thing that was pretty difficult, is being able to have something to do each day.
Mm.
And I still have, by any means, I have not mastered it. There's still lots of days where I'm like, what do I want to do today? It's I've downloaded like Microsoft To Do, or some planning apps, which are definitely helpful, but I always go back to physically writing things down. I don't know why, but
Yeah, I agree with that. I still have a physical calendar. Like I use Google Calendar, but that's more for like reminders. But like I still love to write stuff down.
yeah, I think there's something about it. It helps me be productive. Like I love so I'll just go I'll explain my daily routine right now. So I've my three my 3 days are split up. So I have different presets. What do you call it? Yeah, presets for each day. Oh man, I'm stuck in editing. No, so I have three different presets for each day, or templates is a better word. So the first day is a day where I have, in quote unquote, nothing, which is my favorite day because that is the day that I get to work on my business full time. So yeah, I wake up at 7, shower, and then I go straight to editing. Um, I edit my daily social media posts for not just my account. I run other social medias for clients. So I do all those in the morning, and it is a great. I've just recently started doing this. It is such a good way to start because you get an hour of work done. It feels great, and you have it planned out so you can post at like 5 p.m. or whenever. So that's super awesome. I send it to the client right away, and it also just helps build that relationship because I didn't tell them, but they're getting a piece of content every day that they can post whenever they want, and they love it. So that's been awesome. Next, eat breakfast. It's always the same thing. It's going to be a cheese bagel with egg, ham, and cheese, more cheese, and then honey Dijon, which is the sauce. It's so good. Um, and then from there on, yeah, my first day template is going to be working on editing. So in the film industry, most of your time, if you create projects from start to finish, most of your time is not spent on set. It is spent on a computer editing, which it's not a horrible thing because I like to work alone, but it's also hard to keep yourself accountable for getting deadlines done, which is something I've struggled with. So I take about 2 or 3 hours after breakfast to work on editing projects, whether that be my own short films or client work. For example, for Jim, I do a lot of work for Jim Greendyke Performance Sources, um, or sending and replying to emails and leads is something that I like to do in the morning just because it's something so simple that has to get done. So why not just do it in the beginning of the day, get the productivity running. Um, there's always things I have to reply to on email, whether that be potential clients, building relationships, hopping on a phone call, all that stuff. I really love that stuff. And then yeah, after that, I have some lunch, and then it's going to be working on a side hustle. So right now I am researching different ways to make income, other than my business and my retail job. So trying to have more and more streams of income is something I think is paramount, of importance, because, lots of people found out when the pandemic hit that their job isn't as stable as they thought. Um, so if for some reason my filming business drastically failed one day, I would still have two other streams of income, which is very important to me. So I've been working on that, and I usually spend about 1 to 2 hours every day on that. And then I go back to doing some work on my computer, usually color grading, stuff like that, just to wind down for the day. Um, and then I also, in the morning, I forgot to mention, I also do journaling. Um, so writing down what I did the day before, just to, I think days go by so fast before you know it, and a year has passed. So I think it has been important for me to write down good things, bad things too, that have happened each day, just so I can look back on those journals and think, well, I didn't do nothing that day. I worked on this project, and I went to Best Buy to work.
I just want to add on to that too. Like personally as well, like I think the biggest thing for me as well has been like with journaling is it's really like that's the one thing I didn't really mention, but like I feel like with how I run my days now, I feel like time moves slower, like in a very, very good way. Like I found like a year or two ago, time would just fly by and I would have no clue. Like it'd be a week, months gone by, a year's gone by, no clue that that time's passed. And like having being able to journal, I think has been the biggest thing to kind of remind me like, oh, okay, like a day's gone by and I can like actually like know and quantify like what a day kind of feels like. I know that kind of sounds weird, but like if you've ever done journaling or like really like tried to like figure out like what a day is to you, I know that sounds so bizarre, but like if you've ever tried it, you would know what I mean. It's like it like slows down your day in like a very good way where you're able to actually like understand what you're doing in a day and how you can optimize that better. And yeah, I think that's honestly like the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, it's super helpful, especially planning it out. Like you have a set amount of things you want to get done in the day. And it's also good to not plan some days, just so you have some time to relax. But yeah, in the evenings, I like to go to the gym. And then when I get home, uh, I usually post on social media for the day, and then we're done. Um, I also do, I really love, I can't remember the exact quote, but it goes along the lines of all of the world's problems arise from someone who can't sit alone.
Yeah, I've heard that from Neville Ravikant. Yeah.
So if you really think, I probably butchered the quote.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I think it's like something like all the world's problems can be tied back to like not being able to sit still for 30 minutes or something. It's something like that. Yeah.
The point remains the same. It's like it's if you put a very busy person into a room, um, and just made them reflect for 30 minutes, they wouldn't be able to do it. And I've started meditating, and it's very difficult. Like sitting alone is difficult.
It's really hard.
Putting your phone in a different room and not listening to music, because I love to listen to music, is so hard. It's harder than going to the gym.
Yeah.
Which is it's crazy to say.
Weird. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like for me is like it's just well, not only is it just weird, but I feel like it's also just kind of odd like all the stuff that's like in your mind that you kind of like especially like you mentioned like especially for a busy person, you never really get the time to look at those things. Like you're so focused on what you're doing every day that like those things just kind of are there, but you never really see them. And I think it's really like eye-opening sometimes when you're like, whoa, like I didn't know that was there.
Yeah, I think it also helps people realize what they actually want, because you can have all these ideas floating around in your head, but you might not have time to actually think them through. I think that, sitting still for even 5 minutes a day, it allows it allows your mind to think about what's important to you and what's not. Um, so yeah, I think that's been huge. Even like, I also think it's very similar to like going on walks. Just to get out, and be able to think without distractions is it's very difficult to do in today's age with social media, all that stuff, notifications. Like all these apps are literally designed to keep you on as long as possible, which I mean, you can't blame them,
No.
right? It's a business.
Yeah.
They're making money, but it's also extremely detrimental to people's health.
I'm curious though, like personally, like that's another thing I didn't mention either is I've turned off like basically all notifications on my phone. The only notifications I get are Instagram DMs,
Same.
and the only I literally have those on because that's the only way people can reach me. Like that's everything else I always have turned off. I think Snapchat notifications are by far the most annoying that I found. Oh my goodness, those were awful. Yeah, the only thing I have on are like messages that I get from my parents and Instagram DMs because no one ever DMs me on Instagram unless it's actually important. People kind of know that. So I think those are like very, very important. Now I'm curious, like you kind of mentioned that. Have you turned off basically all notifications as well?
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't have social media for a while just because, I mean, Snapchat is so useless. I like it because I like to I like to show people what I'm, or like posting on Instagram story seems too formal for something.
I completely agree with that. Okay, that's one thing is like Instagram stories are far too formal. It seems too public, whereas Snapchat seems to be like it's like the in between like text messaging and like social media, like full on social. Because you know what I mean. Like Instagram's too public. I feel like.
Especially like having a private story on Snapchat,
Yeah.
where I think like my private story had like 30 people on it, and it's just like the people who would actually care about interesting things that are going on in my life. Actually, no. 30 people probably don't care about what's going on in my life, but you know what the point is.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, I think it was, honestly, I didn't even really notice it going away. Like after the first 2 days, it was like, nice, this is cool. Because I don't really receive a lot of messages on Snapchat. I'm not like one of those people who like,
Oh my,
sends, like,
you know
50
exactly the type of person who likes who, especially now that there's like mass snapping, where you can like instant reply to like 50 people with the same snap. Like it's just ridiculous. I kind of wanted to go into that too. I don't think I've ever actually like formally deleted Snap, but I've definitely multiple times I've like gone like weeks at a time just not using it. I like to like once in a while, like I can tell from like when I have streaks with people, like I'm like I don't have like I don't keep streaks, but like I'll notice like, oh, okay, I've consistently been logging on to Snapchat for 17 days in a row now. If I get to like a month, I will just put it down and I won't use it for a week.
yeah,
And I found that's really interesting because every time I do it, like for the first like couple days, it's very noticeable that I have this like, I don't know, there's like a formal term for it where you like wanna like check it, like you know what I'm saying? I can't remember what it's called.
it's something with dopamine.
No, no, no. Well, okay,
It has
no,
to do
no,
with
no.
dopamine.
It has to do with dopamine, but it's called like something like ghost syndrome or something, where you have this like constant urge to like check something, and you're like,
Isn't that like when you lose a limb?
I don't know, honestly. Yeah, but like I think that's what it's referring to. It's because it feels like you've lost like a very vital part of yourself.
Good point.
I think that's literally why it's called that. But it's like for the first like 2 days, every time I do it, every first 2 or 3 days, it's very noticeable where I'm like, oh, I should check that. Like, I wanna,
Yeah.
if I'm missing anything. But then like every time, like past day 3, I couldn't care less. And every time, and then I'll slowly get back into it, and then like after I've been consistently logging on for like 2 weeks, then suddenly I'm back to like where I used to be. It's really bizarre, but that's why I really like to like kind of purge that, and I'm just like, I don't want to touch that anymore. The other thing that I do like Snapchat for as well is like kind of what you mentioned is I like that there's photos. Like I like to be able to like, especially with people that I don't get to see very often. I think it's really nice to have like that personal connection where you can actually like see the other person's face where, texting is not that. And especially with Snapchat, you can send videos, which is so much more clear in terms of what you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason that I genuinely like tend to keep it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you would never think of sending like a selfie video of yourself on iMessage.
No.
Like no one does that.
It just doesn't work.
So Snapchat is very unique in that way.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's a good app compared to lots of the other social medias. I just don't find a lot of use for myself using it.
Especially stories. I feel like generally people's public stories are very useless.
Yeah, I can't remember last time I posted on a public story because no one cares, right? Like they're just tapping through it. But yeah, we
A couple things that I wanted to mention from like what things you said earlier. One of the things you mentioned was like starting stuff in the morning and like how that kind of starts and pushes into your day. Like one thing that I've always found difficult, and I think we've had this conversation before, is like it's always so difficult to start something. But like once you start it and you get into the rhythm and like the flow of it, then it's so easy. But it's always just getting into like that first, taking that first step is always the biggest thing. Like procrastination plays a huge part in that. And I think what you mentioned is especially starting with something that's like kind of easy where you can say, oh, like kind of like check it off. Like, oh, I did that. And then you can really start to like get into the main part of the day. I think that's really important.
yeah, it's huge. I mean, um, I don't think it's like to be productive. I don't think that you need to wake up at 5 a.m.
No.
I mean, like you can probably get more done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is beneficial for a lot of people, but some people are just naturally active more at night,
Mm-hmm.
like my brother. So he writes fantasy and he basically does all of his writing at night. And that's just when he's the most creative. So I wouldn't say there's like a set time to be productive because everyone's different.
Yeah.
I think for me, and I think I get this from my parents because both of them are up very early, but I think the morning is, it's nice to get up in the morning and do work early.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't mind getting up at 5 a.m. to drive to a film shoot. Like, it's really not that bad.
No. Like I personally as well, like I tend to wake up at 5:30 every morning. And like even the days that I don't need to wake up, I like it's so consistent that I automatically will wake up at 5:30 every day. And I'm just like, oh, well, I'm up, might as well like actually do something.
Yeah, it's like when I stopped going to school, I still woke up at 7 a.m. and just to like work on my business, all that stuff. And I would tell people, or people at Best Buy would ask me, Best Buy is where I work. People at Best Buy would ask me, um, oh, it must be so nice to sleep in every day. I'm like,
No.
why would I sleep in? That is so pointless. I did not want to drop out of school. Well, I did not want to finish school early to sleep in. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. So, yeah, I think people definitely have a different, lots of people have different priorities.
Yeah. No, and the other thing that I find personally as well is just waking up in the morning. It's not even just like even if I don't really do much in the morning, I think it's just something nice to keep me accountable. And it's just a nice thing to like that I can be like, hey, like I wake up in the morning and just like it's just nice to have that time.
Yeah. Like, I mean, yesterday I had like a 12-hour film day and I slept until 8 this morning. So it's like, I'm not like super set on 7 a.m. is like when I have to get work done. But I definitely did feel behind this morning. So maybe I should start sticking to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I find that too. Is like if I do sleep in, then it just feels weird because like everything just seems thrown off. But the other thing that you mentioned was like multiple streams of income. I think that's a huge thing. Especially like you mentioned during the pandemic when people lost a lot of their jobs, people really realized that having just one income stream is not the smartest idea when that if that gets taken away from you, it can get pretty scary. What kind of income streams were you looking at? Is there something in particular that you were kind of focusing on?
Oh man, it's hard because there's so much. Like there's so many options, and I don't like the morality of some of them. Like I don't want to drop ship.
No, that's the one thing that really annoys me, drop shipping. I just don't see how you.
I don't have time for that. No. I honestly I started trying to research side hustles and all that stuff, and I was like, well, why don't I just relate it to filming? Like, what am I doing? I don't need more stuff on my plate. Yeah. I think there's enough diversity in the industry of film and editing that I can have quote unquote multiple streams of income
within that. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people like have a misconception about is that like multiple streams of income need to be like from completely different things. And I think the biggest thing that you can do, especially as like when you're starting a business, is having multiple streams of income within what you do. Like whether it's like you mentioned, like, oh, like what if you edit for someone, and then what if you film for someone, what if you film for yourself and you make money through that, or what if you, like you mentioned, now you've started a monthly subscription where people can, you have clients who can have stuff all the time, and like all that kind of stuff. Like that's already four right there, and I know you do all of those. So like that's the thing is like it's just so that like if one portion of that stops working one day, or you need to pivot it, or if it's just slow like for a month and you still need to keep running, then at least it's not like, oh, I'm screwed. So
Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, I feel like the way my brain works is I feel like I only have two streams of income right now, which is my retail job and my business. But in my business, there's my own company, there's the film company I get contracted to as a production assistant, there's my monthly contract with clients. So right there's three under the whole division of my business. Um, and then it can even expand from that. Like I could start selling stock images and like stock videos, stuff like that. I've heard that it's not that worth your time.
No, but like I mean, it's passive income. Like if someone buys it, it's just free money.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very little barrier to entry. So yeah, I've definitely looked into a lot of that stuff and I might decide to do some of it. But I think even though I'm not going to school right now, um, I'm still trying to grow my knowledge of the film industry and techniques and all that sort of stuff. So like couple months ago, I was very into every morning I would wake up and I would spend 2 hours learning new things about DaVinci Resolve because I had recently switched from Premiere Pro to DaVinci Resolve, which are just two editing softwares. And, they're both editing softwares, but they're as different as could be. So taking the time to understand the possibilities in each one and, color grading is huge. I'm still not nearly where I want to be with it, but learning how to do color grading with different they're called nodes, but it's just a completely different system than I'm used to, and I think trying to learn that has been very important for me. And then also working with a bigger film company has been super helpful. Watching them deal with clients is super awesome because they have higher paying clients, obviously, and bigger companies. So watching them deal with like the management and delivering their product to them, it's super interesting, and I've learned a lot from that, and just communication skills as well. It's been super helpful, and then of course learning about different gear, all that stuff. So like lots of the gear that I try out on their sets, I end up buying it myself because I think it's super helpful for what I'm doing. So even that has been insanely helpful.
That makes sense. One of the other things that I'm sure you've heard is like your network is your net worth. I'm kind of curious what you think of that quote. Everyone's seen that.
Yeah, I mean it's in my industry, it's 100% true. Like I would be I would be nowhere without my mom, who knows way too many people. She is the reason that I got my first client and my second client and my third client. So, and then that turned into my other client. So she's probably the reason why I'm even slightly successful in the business, which is, again, I'm very thankful for her. And yeah, it's those connections, but it's also showing up and doing good quality work for those people, because word of mouth is the most important thing, in my opinion, for my line of work. So yeah, making a good final product, being exceptionally nice to the clients and getting them what they want, for no extra charge, is also important. Building relationships so clients come back to you is also huge. Like there's a lot of clients that I've worked with one or two times that I would assume next year or in the future are going to come back to me for more promos, media work. Now, the prices might go up a little bit substantially from all the new equipment that I've been investing in, but it is what it is. And like even how I first started with Jim Greendyke, um, he was my very first client, and I think I charged what $50 a video. Like,
Wow.
isn't that insane?
That is insane.
That's like that's where I started out from, and at the time I didn't think, oh man, I'm being so underpaid by this guy. He's taking advantage of me. Well, I had never done professional work before, so why should he be paying me thousands of dollars? Um, and now he does. So yeah, it's like the fact that I started working for him for $50 a video, now having a monthly contract with him and going there on a weekly basis to film high quality work for all of his social media accounts. I mean, that's just a testament to how powerful a good relationship is in my line of work. And I'm hoping to build more of those in the coming years. So, yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that you mentioned is like, working for the client. I think like sometimes people aren't willing to tailor themselves to the particular uh, case for each client. And I think the biggest thing is like really being able to meet what the client wants and being able to do that in a way that isn't like a hassle for them, that they're able to do that comfortably, I think is a big thing. Now, the other thing that you mentioned as well is investing in new equipment. I want to talk to you about like what kind of equipment have you invested in and what do you plan on investing in the future?
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned that I started with a Canon DSLR and then I moved to the 90D, which is another DSLR. And then I moved to a cinema cam, which was a pretty big step. Now, the 90D was probably one of my best investments, probably my best investment to date because it got me into client work. Um, and then, combination with that, very quickly after, I also bought a certain lens, a 24 to 70 f2.8, um, which I used for 95% of my personal work and client work. And I did not know at the time that I was buying that it would be basically what started my company. Like those two things, a camera body and a good lens, like it started making good videos and gaining more knowledge. All that combination is what started um, Stiles Productions, I guess. So yeah, definitely my first like quality lens, and the 90D was huge. Um, After that, I made some pretty poor choices because when you're 15, I thought spending $100 on lights was a lot. Those lights are so shit. Like they are so bad. I cannot like.
Are they those ones, the one you put the batteries in? Yeah, those are awful.
Yeah, Pavin has experienced those. We used them once, and yeah, now like spending thousands of dollars on lights, it's like it just makes sense, which is crazy to say because just 6 months ago, or yeah, even 6 months ago, I don't even believe I would be saying that. So again, that's just a testament to how much I've grown as a person and as a business. Um, so I think yeah, those lights were a terrible investment in the beginning. Um, and I think it also helped me realize that buying cheap equipment, it might look good for the price, but if you take that to a set and these lights are taking AA batteries and they die in 10 minutes, it's not professional. Like I totally understand that people don't have the budget right away, and I didn't either. And I still made it work. So yeah, now I have, good lighting, a cinema cam, um, a whole rig for it, stabilizers, all that stuff. And I bought it all myself from the money that I had made from retail and also all my client work. So, you can start off with something as simple as a DSLR and work your way up. It's 100% doable. Um, Now, recent investments that I've made in the past 4 or 5 months have been my cinema cam, which has been really awesome. The quality of that has definitely raised my prices. I have made the money that I paid for it back in tenfold, which has been awesome. I recently picked up some lights from Vancouver. I haven't had a chance to use those professionally yet, but I am super excited because again, it just drives up the quality so much more. And when you pull up to set with like a huge softbox on a light and it takes up half the room, like people think you know what you're doing. So even that is going to raise your prices because you've invested in that equipment. And you know, it is primarily about the experience that you get, but also having the look of a professional is something that I've been trying to work on. So showing up to set with new clients, introducing myself, hopping on a video call beforehand to get familiar with them, super important. And, that's just how you should be operating a real business, right? And having that mindset of I am a business is something that I had to learn really, because when you're 17 or 16 at the time, it's like, well, I'm just making some videos for people who are paying me. It's not like, I'm an operating business, but so that's been a big change. In the future though, my investments, I have a MacBook ordered. So that was a huge investment there. I'm hoping it's going to be more than enough for many years to come because it's a very powerful laptop and, it can handle multiple streams of 8K footage. So I shouldn't need anything more than that for the time being. We'll see how much I grow, but I have that. I also have some more stabilizers coming because I found myself doing more and more kind of run and gun documentary style work for Jim, which is one of my main clients. So, I've decided to reinvest again for him and for myself to make those videos better quality. And that's one of the main reasons why he's been able to justify paying me so much more than what we started out as, because he saw my growth and my drive to reinvest in my company. Like 85% of my money goes back into buying equipment. And some people might think that's so stupid because, well, you're not saving for school. Well, I'm not going to school. You're not doing this, you're not doing that. But some of the most successful people that I know of have spent all of their money, much more than me, reinvesting in their business when they weren't making anything back. Like, for example, Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, like he still does. He reinvests every single penny.
I remember I can't remember who he was on the interview with, but he was like, like the guy was saying, oh, you're probably the richest man in here. He's like, no, he's like, I'm probably the poorest man in here.
Yeah, right, I think that was Logan Paul.
I think so, yeah. I think it was a Logan Paul.
Stupid podcast.
No, I just remember seeing that clip and I was like, I can see that because he spends like 4 or 5 million a video. Like, it's ridiculous.
And I'm not saying that everyone should do that, but
I think there's a lot of value in that. I think because of the way that it exponentially grows your quality and like the way, because if you stop growing, I think that's the biggest killer for you. Like if you can't grow anymore. So I think that's why, someone like Mr. Beast as well is able to continue to grow, is because he's willing to reinvest all that he makes back into his videos.
Like I remember when he was at like 10 million subscribers, and so many YouTubers will stop at 10, 15, 18 million. Like Logan Paul, Jake Paul, KSI. Yeah. All those people have, for some reason, just kind of stopped exponentially growing. And that's totally fine because they're insanely rich. But the fact that Mr. Beast has been able to grow to, I think it's like 97 million now. Yeah. Like what? Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah. I don't know. Huge respect to him for taking the risks that he does.
Oh yeah. Have you listened to like the podcast that he did with it was great.
I've listened to all of them.
Yeah, so like that's huge. I I think that it's just like it's really important. Like what he, I think like what you mentioned too is like the others like KSI, Logan Paul, and everything. I think what they've done is they've kind of shifted what their focus is. I don't think their focus is necessarily growing their YouTube channel. Like obviously KSI he can box. He's done a lot of with music and stuff. So I think they've and like especially with him like Sidemen is huge as well, right? Like he's focused a lot into that. So I think with him it's different because he's focusing on different things. Whereas Mr. Beast he's kind of doubling down on what he has and he's really focusing on that. So I think there's some differences there. Um, yeah. And then the other thing I really like you were saying, like you spend 85 to 90% of what you make to reinvest back in. I think like I've heard from a lot of people who start businesses of like you can really only pay yourself like 10% of what you make. And like the rest really needs to go back into the business in any way that it does. It needs to, really be pushing what you're making.
Yeah, I think like the bigger film company that I get contracted to, they spend probably half as much as me per year on equipment. Which is kind of weird, but it also makes total sense cuz for their for the projects that they do and get hired for, they're at a point where they feel comfortable enough with their own equipment where they don't need anything more. Yeah. And if they do, they rent it for a day. That makes sense. Yeah. So I think I'm at the point where I do not have nearly enough equipment to encompass all of the jobs that I want to do, even if I'm not doing them yet. Like, for example, the light that I haven't really used for a big client shoot. Like, of course, I'll be using it in the future, but it's just something that I didn't have that, well, of course I need to have a lighting setup, right? Like it just makes sense. Um, so yeah, I think I find that very interesting. Um, and something else that I remember someone saying to me, I'm not going to name them, but they they were into filmmaking as well, and they told me not to get caught up in obsessing over your gear, but it's true to an extent, but why not want to up your quality to the best?
Yeah.
Like I have the passion for storytelling. That's what I love the most about it, right? But I also love seeing like 8K quality, right? And I love like color grading and like the raw formats and all that stuff. Like, why would I not spend all my money on something that I love? Like, sure, you can say that you should be focusing on more on your knowledge of techniques and all that stuff. And yeah, there's definitely merit to that, but also why not up your quality at the same time? Especially I'm at the point in my life where I don't really have any major expenses every month. I mean, there's 100% lots of costs to operating a business, which people my age don't understand really.
Yeah, that's very true.
So even things like I had to pay like a $900 bill for my music licensing subscriptions, my website, my domains, all that stuff. Like, what person my age is having to pay for that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So there's things like that where it's it definitely feels like you're throwing your money into the void, but I know it's also going to pay off in the long run too. So
I think one of the things that you really mentioned is like you're spending money on something that you like, but then the other thing is that that's also fueling your business. So I think that's just like a win-win there because you're getting to see the improvement in quality, but then so are your clients. So I think it's just like, why not?
Yeah.
And the other thing you mentioned too is like, you want to focus on techniques, which is very true, but like there's also something to say about having just raw power. Like you can't really substitute everything with technique if your equipment just isn't up to the task.
Yeah.
So having the equipment, like having especially like lenses, like having the right lens for a job or like things like that, or like the lighting too.
Yeah.
Like if you can have that to like really actually set the atmosphere of what you're trying to portray.
Oh yeah.
Especially like you said for storytelling is really, really important. And then the other thing that I was wondering, as like you kind of alluded to that, like there's like a lot of people, like you said, our age don't really understand the costs to a business or what it really running a business really entails. Like I just want you to like kind of give like a rundown. Like you already kind of mentioned like networking with clients, with what you're doing is like investing into new equipment and that sort of thing. But like what else do you do on a regular basis that most people wouldn't really think of when running a business?
Yeah. I think something that's important to me is the way that uh, I portray myself to potential clients. Like even things as simple as posting on social media. Like I'm pretty careful about what I post just because that's my branding, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, they post some questionable things on there, and I make sure like lots of people have told me like, oh, why don't you post like pictures or videos of you working? I'm like, hell no.
Not on your professional account, no.
Yeah, and not even on my personal, because if they find that, like, it's, I don't know. I just
It's not bad. It's just odd. Like I don't know
yeah,
why you would post
I
that.
want
I
people to
see what you
think
mean.
of have a professional view of me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, definitely the way I portray myself. Um, and yeah, the responsibility of having everything be on me. If I mess up, it's on me. And if I
Yeah.
don't satisfy the client, it's on me. It's a lot of stress sometimes, like especially when I got my new camera. I had a film shoot like extremely quickly after that, and I didn't have a lot of time to
Figure it out.
to understand like certain aspects of it and like frame rates that were very specific to that camera. And I got to the film shoot and I did a lot of things wrong, and I had to spend a lot of time in post figuring out how to fix them, which was extremely stressful because I mean, that was at the time that was my biggest highest paying job, single job, and I was like, I fucked up so much of this. I could not believe it. And like looking back on it, they were such simple mistakes, and I've learned a lot since then that I would never make them again. But that also goes back to the fact that it's experiential learning. Like
I was just gonna mention that is like it's the experiential learning. And then the other thing is too, like that you mentioned, like you said, it was just like small mistakes that you would never make now because it just seems so dead simple. But the other thing that you mentioned as well is like, you know, acting professionally. I think that's something huge. And the other thing that you mentioned is everything's on you. Like people don't understand when they work within a company, like you work at any regular job, nothing really is on you. Like even in a managing position, I think in most corporations isn't that big of a deal. Like you're really not in the it's not the same as running a business. I don't think a lot of people realize how much is at stake when you're the one doing everything. Like everything relies on you, and you kind of have to accept the fact that if you go either really big or completely fail, like everything is on you. So I think that's really big, like mentally, like knowing that and just being like, everything that I have right now and everything that I can be is completely dependent on me.
yeah, I mean, there's obviously external factors that make it more difficult for certain types of people, like, your home environment, all
Yeah,
that sort of
definitely.
stuff, which definitely should not be taken for granted.
Yeah.
But again, like the fact that I grew up with supporting parents and, in a financially stable situation, there's no reason why I should fail.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Unless there's one thing that does worry me, and that would be when I hit 19 and I'm able to invest and have a credit card, all that sort of stuff, and really start. I mean, I already am building my business, but just continue that as if the market crashes,
Yeah.
because right now it's kind of seeming like we're heading for something bigger. Um, and
Yeah.
if the market is steadily declining when I am old enough to invest and build my business bigger, it's going to be more difficult. But it could also be extremely beneficial because if I'm at the point where we've just reset and we're going up, it's going to make it so easy.
Yes. I completely agree with that. Like, there's been a ton of studies done, like people that like go into the workforce when there's been a crash. It's very very detrimental. So I definitely agree with that. And like the other thing that you mentioned, but if it can reset, then it can also be very good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's complete speculation because I mean, I feel like we've already had quite a bit of a crash because we're already at lows below what we had during the pandemic. Like we're already below that. So yeah, it is really interesting to see. Like, I don't know if you've been paying attention a ton, but like a lot of the big tech corporations have been going down because their numbers are declining, which is a first since like decades. Like it hasn't happened before. Like Amazon lost its user base. Like its user base went like down. Netflix, same thing. There's just been like a ton. Facebook. they're all posting numbers that
Yeah.
nobody ever expected.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, to really consider, which makes sense though, because now that you think about it, like most people are already on those platforms. So it makes sense why they wouldn't be growing. But because they've been constantly growing, it's just a bit of a shock, I think, to investors and just generally that, how are we declining? That's not really ever happened before.
Yeah. And I mean, Netflix is especially scary because they have burned so much cash onto their Netflix originals.
It's so much money, especially here. Like I don't know if you've heard, like they're setting up a studio here in Vancouver area.
I think they're heavily in debt. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they're heavily in debt.
And it's because of the originals, yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that their stock price is tanking right now is not good.
It's very concerned. I mean, did you hear about like the Peloton crash? Like Peloton is still not recovered. It's ridiculous how down. Like they've got a new CEO and they're still screwed. Like their market cap is so low. Like companies like things have like I was listening to like crypto's gone down a whole. I can't remember what, I think it was either a billion or a trillion in market cap overall. Like that's huge.
Probably a trillion.
I think it is a trillion. Like over like all crypto combined, it's gone down a trillion.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin just hit like 30,000 USD, which is super low.
It's gone down. I believe it's like 60% since its over high in November of 2020. I believe was when it was.
Good thing I'm not invested. Yeah. So yeah, again, like if we can have like a reset when we turn 19, that would be pretty perfect.
Yeah, that would be.
Because then companies have money to burn and all that stuff. So
I think it's been really interesting with like the huge, obviously I'm sure you've heard, we've had like the bull market going for a long time. And I think for a lot of people, like especially our generation, we haven't really seen a bear market. So I think it's really interesting to see how people handle that, because we've never really had it where it's I mean, other than of course the pandemic crash. But even that wasn't that bad, to be completely. It recovered very quickly.
That's because they printed insane amounts of money.
That's exactly. And now we're kind of seeing the after effects of how that wasn't so much of a good idea.
Yeah, it's a temporary solution for a much bigger problem.
Yes.
Like even in 2008, like the single way that they fixed it is they just printed money. So yeah, it fixed it for the time being, but yeah.
It's not the permanent solution. And I think that's where we're seeing all these interest rate hikes. And on top of that, with the whole conflict, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, that's definitely playing a huge part into that. But yeah, I'm just really curious to see like how we're able to really combat that, because at this point, which is really interesting too, because like we've never really had so many jobs either. Like I know a lot of the previous recessions have been contributed, like they've led into like job loss and that sort of thing. But we've like almost never had less unemployment. Like we have so many jobs. We have ways of growing, like our supply chains are somewhat recovering, and yet we're still not we're not increasing GDP and that sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see if we do end up going into a recession, which I think is definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Oh, it's 100% a possibility, but again, like it's impossible to predict it for sure.
It's going to be a fine balance between trying to combat inflation and how much they can really hike the interest rates and all that kind of stuff. Plus supply chain, especially with, wheat production. Like I know wheat's a huge one right now because of Ukraine and everything, and how much of what they supply to the world for that. So, and I mean, everything else too, including like a lot of energy. Like I'm sure you've seen obviously gas prices and that sort of thing. It's going to be really interesting to see how they're able to balance all of that.
Yeah, I don't know. Gas prices are scary. Yeah. Like it's crazy, and like people always think they're gonna go down, but
questionable. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen them go below what they've ever hit. You know what I mean? Like there's always like once they hit like a point, there's always there's always like a certain percentage they'll go lower from that high, but they never I've never seen I don't think I've seen gas go below like $1.50 in so long. And there's sometimes when it goes lower, but it's never gone below that. And like there's always, so the more it increases, there's always like a new minimum that'll always stay.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
Yeah. So like that's kind of big. And then I'm sure you've heard of like the other statistic as well, is like how much money the U.S. printed in the last little while. I believe it was 60% of the money in circulation is printed in the last 2 years. That's ridiculous.
And that's why there's problems, because people don't want to go to work because they can get paid more for sitting at home.
Yeah.
Which is I mean, Canada's horrible for this.
I know. I remember because, like I mentioned, like kind of going back to what I was talking about during the pandemic, I was working a lot. The reason I was working a lot is because the people didn't want to show up to work. So many people were like, "Oh, I can get served. This is great. I get paid more than what I normally get paid because I worked a minimum wage job at the time, obviously, and so they were getting paid more to sit at home and do nothing, and they're not doing it. They don't have to go to work. So why wouldn't like it makes sense? It's from a sensible person. Yeah, why wouldn't you stay at home?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's pretty
It's
messed up.
and yeah, people still feel that way. Like there's so many open job opportunities right now that just aren't being taken.
Yeah,
And it's like,
it's ridiculous. I remember there was this. I can't remember what the exact article was, but there's like a Vancouver restaurant that was offering a job for a dishwasher, and I believe it was like six figures. It was ridiculous. I remember reading this in the news, and I was like, "What in the?" So it's literally like a dishwasher job in Vancouver that was paying six-figure salary because nobody would take the job. I was
yeah.
like, that's insane.
So my brother's best friend became like a physiologist, right? Like
Okay.
massage and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and the place that she went to work, like they're still looking for three other people,
Mhm.
and like being a, I mean, in the doctor or in the States, she would be considered like a doctor, but in
Yeah.
Canada, she's not for some
Okay.
reason. So, but going to school for that long is really difficult.
Mhm.
But if you think about it, so many people are going for like nurses and all that stuff, and for some reason, these jobs still aren't filling up.
It's insane.
Like that company that she worked for offered to help her with her mortgage on her home in Chilliwack to get her to
What?
stay.
Yeah, dude, it's insane. I mean, I was reading recently too. I'm not sure if you've like looked into this a ton, especially like because like travel's finally opening up. I don't know if you've looked into it, but like travel costs have gone up so much. And like I don't know if you've heard, but there's like shortages of like people that work at the airport, and there's like huge delays in terms of like getting processed at the airport when you're taking a flight, and also like there's not enough people to fly, and like flight attendants and pilots and all that kind of stuff, like, and like the reason that the price is going up so much is because they're now offering more to these people so that more people actually come and work these jobs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's all just leading into like even more more of an issue that it's like it needs to get solved at some point.
Yeah,
And it's just a question of how long that takes and where that leads us.
yeah, yeah. It's the future of BC is scary in terms of like pricing.
Like housing, yeah. Cool.
I mean, actually, I read an article popped up yesterday that said that housing prices are actually going to potentially go down in Canada.
They should, yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah, but I doubt they're gonna go down very much. That's the issue. I mean, I remember reading an article like I think like quite a while, like a few months ago, and it was talking about like the housing bubble and like how we've basically had a housing bubble since 2008. Like it's just been going and going, and no one's really checked it. And the issue is that if that bubble pops, like that's gonna ruin a lot of people because most people generally their biggest investment is their house.
Oh yeah,
So if you've got a house that's worth right now like over $1 million, and suddenly it's worth
which is most
like,
houses in BC right now.
if it's suddenly worth half a million, which is where realistically they should be, I think, that's gonna really affect a lot of people. Because they've still got to pay that mortgage, but now suddenly their house is not worth that much. So that's where the issue is, and I think that, like I was reading about, is that's the reason why the government really doesn't want to step in, because these people have taken out mortgages, because they still have to pay that mortgage back. But if their house isn't worth that much, then they can't ever really pay that back, because even if they sell the house, it's never going to repay the mortgage that they have for the house.
You know what's weird? It's like everyone wants to buy their own house, but we're all gonna die. So like, why not just keep renting for cheaper than a mortgage?
Yeah, I literally have a document on my Google Drive called renting versus owning, and I've literally like tried to like list out like what I would want to do,
Yeah,
like versus like renting and owning. See, the nice thing is with renting is like you can
move whenever you want.
exactly, and you also don't have to worry about like maintaining the house. Like that's really nice. You don't have to mow the lawn. You don't have to like worry about the roof like being old, like the walls, anything. Like, oh, I need to get this replaced. Let me just call my landlord. Thank you. Like,
Yeah,
so
I mean, like
there's
obviously,
benefits.
obviously, like owning a house, like you answer to no one.
Yeah. The other thing that I really like about owning a home is like then you can stay in one place. Like especially if you have a family, I think it's really good to have like a house, especially for the kids, because it's like then because when they're moving around a lot, it just gets kind of difficult, especially in their younger years. So I think it's like that's where a lot of people I think end up. That's the reason they want a house is because they can like settle down.
And it also is an investment. So
Definitely.
yeah, properties.
I mean, it's basically never goes down
Yeah.
realistically, and it'll always have value of some sort.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, it goes up. Well, historically, it has gone up more than any other stock. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
But the other thing is too, I think that if you can be smart with it, I think there's an argument to be made that instead of buying a house, that you can instead invest in stock and still make a lot of money versus to that. The other thing that I've always heard is like most people kind of have a misconception of what a house is. Like a house until you have a mortgage is technically a liability, and people don't really understand that. Like if you live in your house, it's a liability. It's not really an investment. You're not making money off of it.
Sad truth.
So the only thing I do appreciate about having like property is that there's no like tax when you sell. So any capital gains you make off of that, like that's tax free cash. So if your house goes up $1 million, that's $1 million, no tax. So that's kind of ridiculous. That's one thing that like sometimes people don't look at. But and the other thing that you can do is you can then relocate. Like if you want to go from here and live somewhere where there's cheaper housing, you can just kind of pocket that cash and you're not paying tax on it. Yeah, Alberta. Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. Another thing that I think we were going to talk about.
I think we can talk probably about like social media. I think was the next big thing. I think one of the big things that I want to talk about. We kind of did talk about like a lot of the negative stuff, and we definitely continue on that. But one of the big things that you're working on is spending 30 days uploading short form real content on your Instagram, and I want to talk to you about how that's going.
Yeah, I think it's like this is like day 6 or 7 of posting every day for 30 days on Instagram. And I mean, I call it like 30 days, but realistically, I'm probably just going to keep doing it. If it gains traction. If I see like the views just keep going down, then I won't keep doing it probably. But right now it's like it only takes me an hour every morning to like develop content for me and for Jim and clients every day to post on primarily vertical form content like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. And the nice thing about it is that they all have their different algorithms. So they're all promoting it to different people, but you can make one video to go on all 3 platforms. It's so broken. Like it took me and Jim so long to figure this out. But yeah,
you can repost it everywhere.
You can repost it, and you can repost it like a year later too, because no one remembers.
No.
It's so
pretty broken.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I have a lot of content that personal content of like documentaries and like road trips that I've never posted, and I think that it's good content, so I wanted to find a way to get it out there. So I think Reels was the perfect way to do that, because it's so easy, because they're only like 10-15 second videos, and it's like 3 clips, so it's insanely easy to edit. And it usually gets good traction. Like I have one reel that has like, it's not a lot, but like 14,000 views. So I mean that's cool. It's not like I'm not like, oh my goodness, like look at this, I'm famous. But it's like, it's cool to see that 14,000 people have viewed it. Especially since like my business account only has like 250 followers.
Like that's pretty big.
Yeah, when I started posting Instagram Reels, consistently, I think I had like 230, and now I'm up to like 260. It's like 30 followers. Like heck yeah, that's sick. And then also I think it's super cool. It's gonna be super cool after the 30 days are done, because I'm not only doing it on my account, but I'm doing it on Jim's account as well, like his social medias. So I'm getting paid to do that. Post on his YouTube, TikTok. I actually started a TikTok account for him, because for businesses to get off the ground in terms of social media presence, TikTok is by far the best, because their algorithm doesn't focus on if you have a following or not. from my understanding.
From what I can tell as well, and the organic growth on there is just ridiculous. Because the other thing is too, because it automatically just like gives people what they need to watch. Like it's not like YouTube where you get any choice. It's just like, oh, this looks like something this person would really like, and it's very, very good at recognizing a target audience. And I think that's where the growth really comes in. And once something gets traction, it really starts going.
And like the fact of the matter is that it's all about consistency. Like,
because you're bound to get something that
and the algorithm knows that you've been posting consistently, and it's more likely to recommend your content, from my understanding.
Yeah, because it'll understand that you're actually serious.
A frequent user.
Yeah,
and they want to reward frequent users, from my understanding. So yeah, it's something that I've had to try and explain to clients, is that like you can't expect this video to blow up, because virality is not a given.
So bizarre actually how that works.
Yeah, like Jim, one of my clients, he could become famous tomorrow if a video got 20 million views. Isn't that weird?
That is so bizarre.
And I think that's definitely like maybe a bonus of social media. There's definitely a lot of bad things about social media that we went over a little bit, but being able to promote, whether it be a business or brand yourself, and have the potential to get an incredible following and make a living out of it is pretty cool. I think I was going to say, after these 30 days are done, where I've finished posting on his social media, it's going to be very interesting to see the statistics. I'm not expecting a whole lot of growth, which is totally fine, but I want to keep doing it for like 3 months and see where it goes. Because by then, it would be 90 videos, posting every day, assuming. And surely one of those 90 videos is going to get like 100,000 views. Yeah, like definitely. Surely. Yeah. If I'm posting every day, and it's high quality content. Like I have filmed these with like the cinema cam. Yeah. So it's like, it's not like iPhone or Android filming, because Android sucks. It's not like Android filming and like no one wants to watch it. Like it's super cool content that we're posting on there. Yeah. But it's super simple as well. And that's what TikTok wants. Like it wants simple content that people will like. Yeah. So that's what I've been trying to focus on. And if it does catch on, then I can go to other companies and say, hey, we did this for 3 months. We posted every single day. We started from 0 followers. We got 20,000, let's say. Yeah. Which would be good. Realistically, maybe let's say 10,000. We got 10,000 following for Jim Greendyke. And I can go to them and say, I managed this. I filmed all the content. He got value out of it. He got new customers. He got bigger following. He got more presence. Yeah, pay me lots of money. It could be really good.
I agree.
Even posting on because I'm doing it like separately. I'm posting for me personally on Instagram and for Jim on TikTok. So I'm kind of comparing the two algorithms right now, which is super interesting. And TikTok seems to be better for gaining like followers. Like he's gaining a lot of followers that like his videos, which is super cool. Where for my personal Instagram, they're getting a lot more views, but they're not getting followers. There's no engagement, which is kind of sucks. Like I think I posted one a couple days ago, and like instantly I got 4,000 views. I was like, oh, this is going to be a big video. Stayed at 4,000. Like 0 views after that.
So weird.
And I got like 9 followers out of that video, which is awesome. Next video I post gets 3,000 views, no followers. Like, what is going on?
It's so weird.
Instagram Reels, I don't know what's going on. It could be really good, I think. I really like it. I like the content that Instagram suggests to me, but it's just, I don't know. It's strange.
It is. I've heard the same thing. Instagram Reels has a very weird algorithm. Like it's not very consistent. It can go really well or really bad. Yeah. So it's just a little bizarre. But I do agree that it's like social media is a really good tool to have. Like I think there's a lot of benefits to it. I think it really is good for like giving people like a voice sometimes. I think is really important. I think a lot of things that happen today wouldn't really be a thing if it weren't for the internet and like social media and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's really big, and like letting random people be able to get a massive following and be able to actually like have an influence on things that happen, I think is really big.
Yeah. I mean, it can be taken both ways. Like being able to live a life as a influencer, as much as I don't really like the word.
Yeah, same.
It's pretty unique. But it's also dangerous to have these 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids having so much influence.
I would say even younger. I think it's worse for younger kids, like 11, 12-year-olds. Like,
I mean, like the creators.
oh, the creators. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. So like they don't really know what they're talking about. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because like TikTok is full of people that are idiots.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
they're idiots. And these 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids who are watching their videos think that these people know all the answers. And I mean, they don't. And so yeah, it's good and bad. And I think the determinant of whether it's good or bad is how you digest social media.
I was just actually gonna like try and transition to that. Is like it's totally dependent. Like it's a tool, and it totally depends on how you end up using it. You can take it too far. It just depends on how you tend to use it, who you like to follow, how much you like to engage with it, what you engage with. I think it's totally up to you how you do that.
So what's your favorite social media right now?
Like account or just social media like
Platform.
platform. I mean, the only one I use is Instagram. So like because the only things that are like, I mean Snapchat, but like that's not really I don't really consider Snapchat like a social media necessarily. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with YouTube too. Like it is, but like it also isn't. Like I consider social media to be something like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. Like those to me seem like social media. First, I don't. Does that kind of make sense? Like I feel like YouTube for me isn't. It doesn't feel like social media to me is something where people can post and comment. Which I mean, you can do that on YouTube too. But I just feel like it's different because I get to choose what I look at on YouTube. It's I don't know if that kind of makes sense.
I think YouTube for us is probably different because it's always been there. Whereas like
That's true.
Instagram, like I remember like when I downloaded Instagram and made an account, right? Same with Snapchat. Like I remember when I downloaded it, got an account. YouTube has just always been a constant, which I think is really good because I love YouTube.
Same.
Like YouTube, I was gonna say that was my favorite one because
Well, see that I was gonna say that too, but I just don't think it's a social media. Like personally, I think it's a little different because the way I use it is I use it normally to find videos of things that I'm trying to learn, of things, all that sort of thing, or just like keep up with people that I actually like to follow. Like it's different because it's also long form, which is what I really enjoy, and it's just a lot more transparent in that way.
Yeah, like I think YouTube has done a really good job at giving people careers. Like they pay so much to their creators, which is super cool, and I respect that. Whereas like TikTok pays nothing.
No, it's ridiculous.
And yeah, YouTube has a great library of things to learn and really good entertainment that's like tailored to you. I think that I definitely use YouTube more as entertainment than Netflix. Like,
Oh yeah,
I don't really watch Netflix anymore. I just like watch my favorite creators on YouTube basically. And yeah, it's great for learning about camera equipment. So for that, it's been super helpful, and like tutorials on how to set stuff up. It's by far my favorite.
yeah. But yeah, like I mentioned, the only three things I really use: Snapchat, Instagram, and YouTube. I would agree with that completely. Like YouTube, like you mentioned, is so helpful, like as an educational thing. Instagram, I honestly don't even like use it very much at all. Like I don't scroll through it ever.
Same.
Like
Who has time to scroll through Instagram for like 2 hours? I go on there, I post, and I just swipe up because I'm done with it. It's so boring.
it is so boring, and I never look at stories either. I never look at stories. I never look at posts. The only posts I do look at are from Mentality. That's the only Instagram page I ever actually engage with, or Jocko Willing's Instagram, and that's it. Like I just don't look at anything. Or like if my friends actually post something, like, and if I somehow manage to see it, because they normally always get like put up to the front, so whenever I open it, like I can immediately see. I'm like, okay, yeah, like I'll engage with that. other than that, like I genuinely, and I just don't follow like a lot of people. Like so many people follow like thousands and thousands of people, and it's just like how do you deal with
Yeah,
that? Like, that's too much.
if you see someone that follows thousands of people, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
Yeah, you gotta stay away.
exactly. Like I think I literally have more followers than people I follow. So and like no, I don't have that many followers. Like I think I have like 200 something. Like it's not that many. I'm just very and literally half of my people that I follow are just people that follow me.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I only follow like 20 like actually like big accounts, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like 20 or 30, maybe tops 50. That's it.
that makes sense.
So,
Yeah, I think like my business account has like 260 followers. And like I follow like 50 people.
yeah. Well, business is different though, because business you don't just follow random.
Yeah, I follow like people that are either like support the business or clients.
Yeah, I was gonna say clients is definitely someone you'd follow back.
Yeah, for sure. And it's cool to like have that interaction over social media. I primarily check Instagram to look at my clients' social medias to see how their numbers are doing and stuff like that, because that's kind of my job. But yeah, other than that, it's mostly YouTube for me, which I've been trying to stop watching so much because it's kind of bad. Um, but it's just like it's a convenient app because it's like it's long form of what you want, whereas something like Netflix, um, it's like a TV series where you might not like every episode, but you feel obligated to watch it because it's like part of a series. Whereas YouTube, it's just like
You can bounce around.
yeah,
And also I think another thing is too like it doubles in for a lot of things. Like it can be educational, like you said, it can be entertainment, it can be basically whatever you want to do that day, kind of.
that's true.
So
That's true. What do you think? What do you think is the biggest harmful thing social media has done?
ooh, that's a good question. I think the biggest thing that the only reason I say it's the biggest thing is because I think it's the most, it has the biggest, like, it has the effect on most amount of people. I think it would just be like the addiction aspect of it. I think is that like a lot of people, because that's what leads into like all the other problems. I think it's the addiction is what starts it, and then that from there it's just where it gets bad, because from there you get into people who end up having issues with like, you know, their identity, and like they're not sure, you know, they're seeing all these people. I think that's one of the worst things about it too, is like how perfectionist everything is. And that's why I like YouTube. Like you mentioned, it's so much more transparent. You can really get a sense of like if a person's being genuine or not. On Instagram, like when you see just photos, like there's no communication there.
Yeah.
And like you only get like the best parts of people's lives. No one's posting, you know, their bad days on Instagram. So I think that's one of the bigger things.
And if you do, you're annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. No one wants to see that. So like it's just like
Me included. Like, don't post that.
exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's just like that kind of really gets to people, because especially like I feel like we are in such an interesting generation where we technically grew up with it, but it wasn't influential when we were younger. Like I didn't get like a social media account till I was like
12 or 13?
I didn't get it till like 16.
Really? Instagram?
Yeah, I got Instagram and Snapchat in grade 10 when I met you.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's the only time I got it. And I mean, I like you said, YouTube was a constant. I did watch YouTube from a very young age, but again, like you said, it's quite different. But like, I mean, Instagram and Snapchat I got back in grade 10, and that's the only time I've ever used them. But I even 12, like 12, 13, 14, like that's still older. But I know like a lot of people now, like I see like kids in elementary school with social media.
And like phones too?
Yeah, like that's bizarre to me, because I feel like that's gonna really mess some people up.
Oh yeah.
Like I can already tell too. Like that's why, like you said, like a lot of the younger kids that we get at school are like so much more immature. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they haven't had proper like they haven't had like learned how to like interact with people. That's the really weird thing about it, is like people don't know how to talk to each other. It's so bizarre.
I know, like, well, I'm guilty of this too. Like if I'm in an awkward or even like a situation where I don't know a lot of people, I'll just go on my phone.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, everyone's guilty of it. Or like even like the other way people use it is like just to like as a distraction, or just to like get out of a situation. Like, oh, you're waiting in line at like a store, just whip out your phone. And like you just don't want to talk to people, whip out your phone.
yeah.
Like it's just like, you know, it's just like oh, here I have my screen now. Don't talk to me.
Sometimes like I've seen so many funny videos about like
the people where they're like scrolling on the home screen. I was just gonna talk about that. There's been like NBA stars who were like just didn't want to do an interview. They're just like scrolling on their home screen. They got like the calculator app open. Like, what are you doing?
But I mean, that's just like, it's the perfect word for it is a social crutch. Because
that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, because we 99.99% of us can't live without it.
No.
And like I'm guilty of that too. Like I find it like when I'm on like a long film day, I find it very easy to not use my phone the whole day because my mind is active and I'm very focused. I'm extremely focused, and like it's creative and it takes a lot of energy. But then the hard part about it for me is when I get home, because I usually use my phone before I'm going to bed as like a wind down time. Like I'll watch YouTube and all that stuff, and like watch YouTube mainly. But that's like when I don't think I really wouldn't want to be without it, because it just feels weird for me to go to bed without like checking my phone and all that stuff. I remember when I was in Penticton on a shoot, like we were filming the whole day. We weren't using our phones. Like you don't really think about it. Then when I get back to the hotel, like pull out my phone, start watching YouTube, right? Yeah. It's like that's the time in the downtime where it's like, well, what else are you supposed to do? Yeah. Right?
I was just going to say, like, I think the biggest thing is too, like, especially for me, like, I'm fine with not using my phone, but then the issue that I run into is when I get back and I've missed so much, and then I feel obligated to catch up on everything. I don't know if you've, like, ever had that. Like, when I just don't use it, then I'm like, oh, well, now I have all of this to catch up on. And then suddenly that makes me want to use it more often, so I'm not stuck in that situation where I'm, like, wasting, like, literally an hour or two catching up on all the emails and everything that I've missed. And I'm like, well, this sucks, because what if I would have just checked it more regularly, then I don't have to spend so much time on it. You know?
I think, I've listened to a lot of podcasts where lots of successful people, they say, okay, I'm only going to check my emails in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then they just don't worry about it. You're not available to contact until next morning, which I think is very helpful for lots of people, because it takes away the stress of always having to reply or check your emails. So I think that's something that probably both of us could implement.
Yeah. I mean, generally what I do is I don't really respond to emails on my phone. For whatever reason, I just never, like, unless it's super urgent, like I'll see the email, and if I feel like it's urgent, genuinely needs my attention at that time, I will wait until I actually like sit down in front of my computer and genuinely am able to like look at it. Because I also find that on mobile, like I really can't like properly like see the email. And like, like when I'm sitting in front of my computer, I'm like, okay, like I can actually sit down and I can properly like read, because also on a phone it's way too cramped, I find sometimes, especially replying to emails is such a pain on a phone. It's like you're trying to read like what they sent you, and then like you're trying to respond to those things, and like on a computer it's so much easier, because like especially Gmail, where you have like the little thing at the bottom right, you can actually see the whole email and like be able to like actually properly respond to what they're saying.
I think I'm the same way, and that's like kind of the reason why I'm also excited to get my MacBook, is because I want to be like productive on it, right? I want to use it only for business. I don't like replying to emails on a phone, especially business. Like it's like weird, like typing.
I'm like the same thing with me. Like I associate like my personal stuff with my phone, which is exactly that's why I run into an issue. Like especially when I'm trying to respond to like, important emails, I'm just like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to like do revisions on computer, and even like copy and pasting stuff. It's like, it just feels right on a computer. But definitely if there's something urgent, I'll reply to it on my phone, because
might as well. Right?
Yeah, especially if I'm on the road or something and it's like person needs to hear back, then I'll do that for sure.
Definitely.
But I think like going back to like social media, I think addiction is something that it's 100% the biggest issue. I think it's one of the biggest issues of our generation too.
I agree.
Like, I think it's one of the maybe one of the main reasons why people don't have as much drive.
Mm-hmm. I was actually just gonna. That's the other thing I was trying to like talk about, is like I've always found that the times that I'm most drawn to it, which is what you mentioned as well, is when I don't have something else to work on. So that's why I've always tried to like that's why like I like to plan my days out too, because then I know like, okay, this time I'm working on this and that's it. I don't want to like, be using my phone or anything, because I've always found when I have that downtime, when there's nothing else to do, when I'm like, oh, I can be distracted, that's when I normally get pulled in
Yeah.
the hardest, I would say.
Yeah. And I think lots of people who don't try in school or who don't have a job, that, well, what else are they going to do in the day?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the other thing. Yeah, like I always try to like, with school and then like work and like other things that I try to do outside of school, and just always try to keep busy, because that I've always found is the easiest way to kind of keep myself away from being drawn in.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I usually go to the gym in the evenings because I mean, yeah, I could go to the gym in the earlier in the day. First of all, it just feels wrong. But second of all, it's like in the evenings from 7:30 till 9:30. In that time, I would usually be, sometimes I'll be editing a project. Most of the time I'll be watching YouTube or like useless stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I've kind of dedicated that to be my gym time now, because when I get back from the gym,
You're just done.
I just take my protein shake and I go to bed.
Yeah.
So there's no really time for like spending a lot of time being not productive. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been trying to do recently, and yeah, I love going to the gym. It's awesome.
I was just gonna say, like, we can kind of transition into that, like, going to the gym and stuff. I think that's one thing that's like kind of overlooked by a lot of people, and I think that a lot of people think it's only for like physical benefit, but I think for me personally as well, like I think a lot of it's actually more the mental side, and especially like what you said. I think like for me, like if you work out, like you sleep so much better. Like you genuinely have such a better sleep. You can sleep longer and you actually have more like enjoyable and like more refreshing sleep.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like you mentioned, like it's good to be tired. Like I feel like in our like you said, like in our age now, we're so like, you're so used to just sitting in front of a computer, sitting at a desk, doing work, whether it's like you said, editing or just homework for school or whatever it is. We're so used to just having like super just like you don't really move around. And so, and we travel in cars, and like when are we really challenging our body? And I think that's where there's a certain level of like physical activity that you need to maintain to like keep your mind and body just like functioning. And a lot of people kind of miss that. And I think that's also a big thing into like mental health as well. I think it's huge for that as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's like you're going to the gym to grow in muscularity, but it's also like going to the gym. It's not about trying to get as big as possible for most people. It's the main benefit is that you're doing something consistent every day to better yourself. And I think that's like, I don't get why people would say that they don't like people go to the gym, or like they stereotype people that go to the gym, because why would you not want someone that is motivated?
I think it's one of the purest pursuits you can have. I think that like people who go to the gym understand other people who go to the gym, because they see that same kind of like drive in them, and they see that they're able to stick to something. Like most people don't like, people say like, oh, like I like going to the gym. No one actually likes to like, suffer through that. Like it's not, there's something about it though that just like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone who's gone to the gym knows about that. It's just like you don't enjoy the suffering, but yet you do. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
And it's like it's almost like mental therapy. And the other thing that I find too is like a lot of times, like I find that like it's a good balance between like for me in the gym and like professionally, like what I do in life. I use each other to like kind of push myself in both ends. Like I'll be like, oh, okay, so if I can work this hard in the gym, then I should also be able to work equally hard at school. Or if I work this hard in school, I should be able to work equally hard in the gym. If that kind of makes sense. Like I kind of use it as like to push myself in other aspects of life, because I can show myself like if I can work hard at this, I'm sure I can put that kind of effort into something else that I want to pursue.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think I respect people who go to the gym probably more than people who don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like obviously not a determining factor of whether I'm going to like someone, but hard work and determination is something that I think is proven by going to the gym.
I think it's just an instant, like you're like, okay, yeah, like that I can see, like it's basically like, oh, you can immediately tell that the person's at least somewhat driven.
Yeah,
Whether or not, that permeates their other aspects of life, that's definitely a different question, because some people can get too into the gym thing and just that's all they do. And that's also an issue. But I think for a lot of balanced people, I think it's something that actually does help them in other aspects of their life.
for sure. Yeah, like when I was starting to focus on working and trying to make more money, I stopped going to the gym consistently for a little while because I felt like I was focusing on working more. And I think probably a lot of people feel that way. Like the gym is always put last.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but now I've been starting. I got a membership at a real gym. I have a home gym as well, so that's where I'd worked out for the longest time. But I recently got membership to, first of all, try and keep me consistent, and second of all, again, I spend so much time by myself alone.
It's a good social thing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I appreciate that a lot. Um, and the how I chose the gym was actually just most of my friends went there. So, I want to.
Yeah, especially like you said, because now you're not going to school, so it's kind of big that that's probably one of your main social
Oh yeah,
interactions in the day. So that's really important, because if you kind of get like, if you're just alone for a really long time, that can also really mess with you
yeah,
big time.
yeah, for sure. I think it's probably changed me a lot, even though like it's hard to self-reflect and self-diagnose yourself, but I mean, how can it not affect you,
Yeah,
right?
that's very true. Yeah, I mean, continuing on from that, like we were also going to talk about like goals and systems and that sort of thing. I think that kind of ties in really well with working out and that sort of thing. Um, like even in working out, I feel like it's always more of a system. Like even though you obviously you've got like you're pushing for something. Like you're normally pushing for like, oh, I want to lift this or this many reps of this or whatever, right? Like you always have that goal, but it's always just putting in consistent workouts. And I think that a lot of times that's the other thing a lot of people like learn from the gym is making a proper system for yourself so that you can actually like succeed.
Well, yeah, I think this is true for a lot of things, but um, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but for the most part, if you are very focused on a single goal, like say I want to bench like 3 plates, and I'm only focused on that number, it's going to be very difficult for me or anyone to continue going to the gym every day when I'm not seeing,
That number. Yeah.
yeah, or even just
Or just even improvement. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
like in the gym, if I go home and I look at them in the mirror and then I look in the mirror a week later of consistently going to the gym, I'm not going to notice anything.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing. Okay. That's the other thing is too with like the gym. I think it really promotes delayed gratification. I think for a lot of people, because you know, like if you can become someone who can consistently hit the gym, you can realize that the bigger gains are made from being consistent year over year, not day over day, like you said, not in a week, not in a month, not in a few months.
Yeah.
It's year over year. That's when you like really. That's when starts compounding on itself, and like that's when you really start to see an actual difference.
Like, I think if you were to go to the gym like really hard for 3 months and then compare that to someone who's going to the gym moderately but consistently for like a year and a half, it's going to be not even close. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Cause like, it's just like when I stopped working out for about probably 3 months. And that was the longest that I've ever stopped working out since I started. Um, and like I still went like maybe twice a week, but that's not really consistent for me. Um, I saw so much like changes, like less motivation.
Yeah. Honestly, like that's one of the things that I've noticed too is like if like when I'm consistently working out, you get that like clarity and motivation in everything you do. It's
Oh yeah,
really ridiculous. And the other thing is too, like a lot of people think like it takes energy to work out, which it does, but I've always found that after working out I have more energy. It's really weird.
it gives you energy. It's so weird. Like when I walk out of the gym and I'm driving home, like I have so much energy. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like it's a good way if you're a busy person and you always think about something. It's a very good way to release stress and like just focus on something completely different.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's super beneficial for everyone.
Pretty much everyone. I agree. I mean, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. Is like first thing, like you kind of mentioned, is it really teaches people about like burnout and how to avoid it. Like you said, like not you can't just go hard at it for 3 months. Like you've really got to pace yourself. You've got to understand, what works for you and what you kind of want to work on.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And the other thing is too, like you said, it's really good for like busy people and like especially for me, like for people who are like super academic, is especially I think like those are the exact people that tend to avoid the gym. And I think for those people, I think it's the most important because it's something so different. And I think, and the other thing is too, it's like you're not thinking about anything. Like whenever I go to the gym, it's like my mind is completely clear. There's nothing going through it. And especially as someone who's like super academic, when I'm thinking like 24/7, it's really nice to get like that hour of like just there's nothing going on.
I agree completely.
So
And I think like the idea of goals versus systems is something that's very interesting, and I don't think it's talked about nearly enough as it should be. I think me and you are both very familiar with this idea, but um, it's primarily the idea that having an end goal in mind is not always going to get you where you want to be, but developing a system that you can follow every day and be consistent with is going to get you exponentially further. And it's also going to make you happier because when developing a system, you learn to find happiness within the things that you're doing. When you focus on a goal, you learn to find happiness from an outcome.
yes.
Especially when those outcomes can't be controlled by you. So lots of people define their self-worth by external factors, which is very problematic because certain things, like, for example, if I get my next client, well, that's not entirely up to me.
No.
I can do the best that I can to impress them and make a good first impression. But if they don't have the budget for it, it's not in my realm of possibilities for me to make something happen, right? And if I value my self-worth in that, then I'm going to feel like I'm not enough because of something that is completely unrelated to me. And I think a lot of people they're not aware of that.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. Like, honestly, that's exactly what I was kind of thinking. One of the things that really ruined, like, especially goal setting for me, I don't know if you had the same experience, but like, I remember you would always have to like set goals in elementary school. It genuinely ruined goal setting for me. It just wasn't fun. Like, it was just like, I'm just going to write something down just to get a mark for this stupid assignment, and that's it.
Like, okay, that's actually a good point. Even like throughout school, they always make journaling and writing about
Yourself. Yeah. It always feels so forced and so unnecessary that it turns people off from it so much. And I think that's like really unfortunate because it can be so important. And I think they have the right intention, but I think teaching it broadly just doesn't work because everyone's experience with it is so different. So it's just, I just don't see, and also they don't really promote consistency either.
Yeah, it's like you do it for like once every Tuesday.
Yeah.
And also, I think the fact that it doesn't work in a larger group situation too is because you have those social pressures where if someone who's, again, quote, cool thinks it's stupid, then everyone thinks it's stupid.
Which generally there's always someone who thinks it's stupid. I mean, someone thinks it's stupid.
Exactly. But like,
when a large group, then that permeates the whole group and then it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And you're not actually going to write like something worth of value.
No. And especially in school too, because it doesn't seem private enough either. Like it seems to, like even with a teacher, like yes, it's still private, but it's still like when you're journaling on your own, it's a completely different, like it's just you.
Yeah.
And that's completely different.
Yeah. Like there's not like 30 people in the room. Mm-hmm. It's not natural.
No.
Yeah. But anyways, I think I've definitely learned a lot by trying to focus on creating a daily plan that works for me, that I can get work done rather than setting a goal. I do love to set goals because I think it's like
It's something to chase after. It gives you something to work towards. Yeah.
I like to think about what it could be in the future, and I think that I'm a very like um, I like to envision things.
Yeah.
So I think it's like it has to be a combination of both because you have to know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, not all the time. You don't have to know where you're going because if you get up and put the work in, it's gonna probably
Lead to something.
lead to something good.
Mhm.
But if you know where you're going and you can create those goals and systems,
Yes.
then it's gonna be it's a perfect combination. Like I have goals. I like to drive to an empty parking lot one day a week, usually Wednesday, and I like to um, bring my notepad and nothing else, and I write down what I want to get done in the week, and also sometimes like 5 year goal plans.
Yeah, that's really important too. Like having like short, medium, and long term stuff, I think is really important.
Yeah, it's huge. Like I even have like yeah, I have my week goals that I want to get done. I have my 2022 goals that I want to get done. Then I have like 5 year like big goals. And one of my end of 2022 or most of my 2022 goals are like focused on like business and like income and all that sort of stuff, which I know isn't entirely under my control, but it's just something to work towards. Yeah, and it's something like that those systems can work towards, and if I hit it, that's great. If I don't, well, I'm gonna hit it eventually. So
And I think like the important thing with like goals, like you said, it's always good to envision something. I think a lot of times, especially when you feel like you don't want to keep doing something, it's really nice to see something and be like, remind yourself, okay, this is what I'm working towards. And that's really nice to see.
yeah,
But the other thing is too, sometimes you can actually like, lower what you could have been, if that makes sense. Because sometimes you can set a goal and you could have been so much more if you weren't so focused on that one thing, and you sometimes can limit opportunities because of that. So I think it's really important what you said. It's good to have like a system where you're working consistently and you're open to certain things just happening while also having something that you're still working towards. I think both of those things, should be working together.
yeah. I think like being open to new experiences is something very important, and it's not just to have fun, but it's also helpful for your mind and for your like well-being. Like I know certain people who are very very closed off to new experiences, and those same people are very antisocial and very most of the time not happy.
Yeah.
um, and I'm not saying it's a direct coalition, but I think being open to new experiences and meeting new people is it's good because it gets you out of a comfort zone.
Yes, definitely.
And the comfort zone is what kills people. Like
100%.
it's so bad if you get into a rhythm where you're just doing the same thing over and over again, because I mean, if you really want to think about it, you're only going to have 4,000 weeks approximately
Yeah.
on this earth, and you're spending 2,000 of them at the same day job every single day, not taking new experiences. So yeah,
Yeah, I think a lot of people get stuck in the hamster wheel, and then it's just like, even if they don't like it, it's not even like comfortable, but like they don't want to get out of their comfort zone. Like it's not a comfort, like it is a comfort zone, but like even if they're not comfortable within it, they know what's there, and they don't want to explore something that would be different from what they already know.
yeah,
I think that's really important, like you said, is to do sometimes like, and it can be either or. It can be work business related, or it can just be hanging out randomly with people.
yeah.
Either or, they'll go hand in hand with one another. Like if you do it in one setting, it'll probably help with the other setting as well.
Yeah, I think like the more you the more you have social interactions, the less like stressful it becomes. Because and I mean that's kind of obvious, but I think for lots of people, like maybe they'll go, and this happened to me quite a long time. I didn't really like see a lot of people because I was out of school, and I just didn't, I didn't feel the need to go and talk to people, other than when I was working at Best Buy. But then I think I texted you and I was like, I want to set up like a schedule to like call or hang out because I was missing like certain social interactions with
Yeah.
people because it's it can be very detrimental to your health to not be able to express your feelings and things that are happening in your life. And really, if you have a very, very close friend, it's basically the same as a therapist
Yeah.
because they're just listening and you don't have to pay them hundreds of dollars.
That's true. And then the other thing is it ends up going both ways. So I think that's really important as well because it's good for both parties to have that interaction.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, goals versus systems. I think, both are important. But systems are definitely overlooked because, people want something, but they don't put in the work to get it.
Yes. I really like what you said about like when people start to get gratification from the outcome. I think that's the biggest difference maker between goals and systems. Is with goals, like you can't be happy until you get to that goal. And then once you're to that goal, now suddenly you need another goal to gratify what you're doing. And you just get stuck in the cycle where you're never happy unless you hit that goal. And that's why that, and then always the journey is always longer than the destination. For the destination, you might be happy for a day, a week, a month, at most.
Or 5 minutes.
Yeah, like it could be anything. Like, and so that's the thing is when you're in a system, you can have little points within that where, or just the entire journey as a whole, you can actually have enjoyment and be happy within that. And I think that's what's really the biggest difference maker.
Yeah, like I remember there's certain points in my starting my business where I would land like a big, or for me it was big at the time, contract, or just a client, and like when they agree to do the video or when they agree to do the job, it's like, yes, I landed this client, I'm gonna get this much money, but then it's like
that only lasts for so long,
and it's like, well, I have to do the work, so you can't really be happy about the money because you haven't even done any work yet.
That's true.
So like, that's why so many people that I've talked to, well, I don't talk to a lot of people about my finances, but the people that I do talk to about my finances, most of them are like, oh, well, this person hasn't paid you yet. Like, oh, why aren't you like, why are you still like doing work for them? Or like, why are you still being nice to them? I'm like, well, it's a working relationship. And also, it's not about like when I get paid, because I have the luxury to not live paycheck to paycheck. And I don't need like the
immediate, like
the extra $1,000 or however much it would be. I can afford to still work with those people and just basically build up the money that they owe me. So it's like, I'm going to get paid eventually. Like I work with these clients all the time, so I'm not worried about not getting paid. Also, they're under a contract.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's something that I've actually been pretty good with it now, at least, is not worrying about this job is this much money. It's
just a job.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the way that the other film company looks at it as well. They're not concerned about the numbers. They're like, oh, we got this really awesome client. Hopefully we can continue to work with them in the future. And I think that's a much better mindset.
Definitely. And like, I mean, like even like J. Cole said, I'm sure you've seen this as well, where he talks about like how when he was like coming up, when he thought he was like at the time, I'm sure he thought he was like really starting to get famous. Obviously he hadn't seen what he was going to be, but at that time he started to see like, he was always chasing the next milestone, like the next big hit, the next whatever he could do, that he started to like miss everything that he did have, like all the blessings and all like the good stuff that was happening, the things that he hoped for when he just started out. He was missing those because he was still just looking for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and he was missing how much he'd already gotten. And I think that's the biggest difference maker between a goal and a system, is you can kind of miss sight of all that you've already grown to.
Exactly. Especially for people who don't take the time to reflect. It's like, I know I'm very lucky to be in the position that I am, and I don't take that for granted. I mean, I do to an extent, but I think about it a lot, and I think that I'm very blessed. And yeah, people who are always searching for the next goal probably aren't happy with where they are because they feel like they need to get to the goal.
Yeah.
So if you're never happy with where you are, well, that's not a very fulfilling life.
No, I agree. I think that's the one biggest thing is like people tend to just not be comfortable with where they're at, and they're just constantly like going for the next thing, and then they realize that no matter what thing they get to, they'll just never be happy when they real like that's the whole point of like J. Cole's song Love Yours. Like he talks about like no matter you can continue to search for like a bigger house and a nicer car and like better clothes or whatever, like whatever that may be. If you can't like love your life right now, you'll never be happy because you've got to understand like your life is your life and like it's whatever you make of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And like I like what you mentioned too is like when people don't reflect on things. Like I'll sometimes just pick up my journal and just think like even just read like even a month ago and I'll realize like my mind was in such a different spot than where it is today. And I'm like I've grown so even in like a month. And that's like it's insane sometimes. I'm like reading this, I'm like, I can't believe like that's what I was worried about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
It's
cool.
really like that's one of the coolest things that I found about journaling. Or like even like sometimes I'll pick up like some like a really old journal because I've gone through like 3 or 4 at this point. And I'll pick up like a really old one and I'm like, that's weird. Like what was I even thinking about at the time?
Right.
It's so cool to see how much you can grow in that time.
Yeah. So I started writing in my phone notes. I think it's almost been a year. It's very close. I think it's been 11 months.
Okay.
So it's the journal on my phone is when I don't write in it very often, and that's on purpose because whenever I go into it, I read every single one.
Okay.
And it's super interesting to see where I was at like 10 months ago, where I was at 1 month ago, and everything in between. And the fact that I probably only write about it once every month, and sometimes it goes like 3 months without me writing in it. I answer certain questions that I have in my previous.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll see if I can find this note here and I can give you an idea.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean it's a very like private note, so I won't
just go out and read the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. But like okay, so I wrote in it for the first time around like June. So now it's late May.
Yeah.
And that was when my girlfriend at the time was going back to where she lived. So obviously that was pretty difficult for me. And yeah, I'm so glad that I wrote everything down because now I can look back and I'm like, wow, like I was in a not the best place there. And that's really like all I could think about. And then going back to, let's say, October. Yeah, so October, it completely transitions. Like it's completely different. Like I'm talking about school, talking about like working out. I asked myself like 1 year from now, what are you doing? How's the business going? So October this year, I'm going to be answering that question, which I think is super cool.
That's super cool. I don't think I've ever journaled like that before, but that's really interesting.
Yeah. So, and I even write like certain things, like tell so-and-so next time you read this.
Oh, so like you can like make sure that you're like connected with people.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have my friend Ethan, I have in one of my journal notes, tell Ethan, I'm not going to say it, but this when you read this next. And I've texted him that many times and he's very confused because I've never told him why I say that.
You just randomly just text him out of the blue like, hey, this. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it goes June, July, August, October, then it goes to January.
Wow. That's a big jump.
Yeah, and it was huge because October I didn't have like any clients reoccurring, and then January is when I decided to basically take my business full time. Yeah. So it starts with, it's been a long time. What's changed? ? Quite a lot. Today was my last day of school semester. It could be my last day of school ever if I wanted to, but I don't know. I thought I didn't like school at all, but now it's hard to say goodbye. So that kind of stuff where it's like, yeah, it's interesting to look back. And I mean, now I can say that it was a good decision not to go back, but at the time it was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And we talked about that earlier in the podcast, but now you can see my thoughts at the time. Let's see. And yeah, this was the night that I had to decide. So I have to decide what I want to do tonight, if I go back to school or not. Um, I'm very stressed right now. Um, I have a cinema camera, Blackmagic pocket cinema camera. It's pretty cool. It makes me look professional, and I'm excited to use it for the first time. Now all I need is some clients. So
I do remember that time. That was quite the time. I remember we talked a lot during that like 3 or 4 days, I think it was, where you had like the time to like decide
yeah,
what you wanted to do, because it was the weekend after, right, where you had to like the weekend you had to decide, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah.
And you were like, and I was like, I don't know, dude. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure we could find text messages, but I was
yeah,
like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna
yeah,
do it because it's in the journal too. But the way that I felt was that um, I was pretty scared of the future because for me the future was always starting my business.
mhm,
And here's what I wrote. I said, I'm scared of the future because the future has always felt far away, but now it's here. Now it's time to start my business and start my life. Um, and I know that I can do it, but I just have to reach out and take the opportunity. Um, the next time that you read this, let me know how many clients you have. Um, so
that's pretty
yeah,
cool. Yeah,
yeah, it's very strange to look back.
it has always been. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like I look back and I'm like, that was something.
And yeah, like a lot of my journals after I finished early in school were about missing people.
Mhm.
So like not being able to connect with people as much,
Yeah.
and yeah. And then in March, I journaled about not having Snapchat anymore and how it did not make a difference at all.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and talked about how my MacBook is ordered and it still hasn't come. So yeah, it's I think journaling is something everyone should at least try once,
Yeah.
if it's not
I
for
think,
you.
and the other thing is too that people end up giving up on it too quick. It's like that's what I'm kind of trying to get across with like the point with like going to the gym. Like a lot of people, when they can go to the gym, then they're also able to transfer that like consistency to other things, where they're able to try something and actually give it a fair chance and actually do it for a long time before they're like, okay, you know what, this really isn't for me, or this is for me. And I think that's really important. But have you ever thought about journaling like with pen and paper? Because I feel like that's a whole different experience.
Oh yeah, I do that. I do that for my dailies.
That's what I do. Yeah, for my dailies, that's what I do as well. I actually kind of have a very similar setup, even though that was completely unplanned. But I have like an actual note where I normally do like general stuff, and then like daily, it's all written.
Let's hear one.
There's like really nothing in there, but like I haven't actually updated it in a long time, to be honest. But let's see what we've got in here.
Yeah, I think my last update was April 2nd.
Let's see. June. Oh my gosh, June 15, 2021. Jeez,
So
this has not been
almost a
updated.
year.
This has not been updated in a very long time. But that's also because I started like doing a lot more of it like written like
Yeah, that's true.
paper. So
Okay.
that's kind of why.
Okay. So what were you thinking about a year ago?
That's a great question. Let's see. So I think I wrote this to myself at some point, but oh, here. So these are some things that I was focusing on. Make small term goals. Finish what you start. Surround yourself with people who hustle. Recognize your self worth and reward yourself.
Nice.
Those are some interesting things. And I have this whole paragraph. Oh my gosh! You want to hear it?
Yeah, wait, but first of all, do you feel like you've done that?
I would say yes, definitely. I think the small term goals was huge. Like I said, I got a planner off of Amazon. It was actually okay. Here's the thing. I have a real issue with this. It's so hard to find planners that have like, like hour to hour planning where you can actually like properly plan. Like the one that I have right now, it has half hour chunks. And it's so nice to be able to like actually like plan out like small chunks of the day. So that's been really helpful for the small term goals, I would say. Finish what you start definitely has been big. I've done a lot of stuff that I've started and been able to finish. Surround yourself with people who hustle. That's huge. I think on this podcast, a lot of people will be able to see that. There's a ton more people coming on here who really inspire me and push me to be better every day. So that's huge. Recognize your self worth massively. A difference. Like you mentioned, like it's all about not putting your self worth in like external things. It's all about recognizing like being happy with who you are and what you're doing right now. And reward yourself. I would say yeah, honestly. Not even necessary. I haven't even done this like on purpose. I feel like with a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, with especially the grad events and stuff, it's just been kind of nice to like
Yeah.
let loose and just have fun.
Like
Like I haven't just done
adventures.
that a lot. Yeah, I agree. Like that was fun,
Yeah.
and it's just not something that I generally do, just because I don't know. I just never plan for it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I kind of do need to focus on that a little bit more and just kind of like do more fun stuff. But like at the same time, it's like I'm happy with where I'm at, and I'm never like like sad about it. So
Yeah, like if you don't mind like working all the time, like if you like it.
yeah, it's like that Big Sean line. He's like, "Oh, I feel better at work." Isn't that what he says on this one song? He's like, "Fuck a vacation. I feel better at work."
Yeah. That is
That's the line.
yeah. That's so okay, wait, let's hear the paragraph.
Oh, you want to hear the part? Oh, this is so long. Okay, I think this is more like general, but I guess it is kind of towards me. So it says, when you go to pursue your dreams, you'll probably go through these phases. You get motivated, but you ignore the urge to act on it. You get motivated again. This time, it's different. You mentally put yourself in a position of do or die, reassuring yourself that this has to get done. Then comes the biggest hurdle of all, staying committed. Despite the difficulty of taking that first step, it's actually pretty easy to get motivated to do something for a day, a week, or even a month. But staying committed year after year is what separates the sheep from the goats. It's in those moments when you're putting in the work while everyone else has fun, when you're putting in the work and no one notices, when you're putting in the work and it seems like it's going nowhere. Those moments are some of the most difficult to overcome, and that's where many people fail on the road to success. It has a lot to do with the instant gratification type of world we live in now. If we don't get immediate positive feedback, we don't want to do it. That was the general statement. And I think that's honestly been very true
Yeah.
for what I've been doing.
So you still feel the same way?
I would say I've gotten further down that road, to be honest, if that kind of makes sense. You could kind of hear like you get motivated and then you lose the motivation, then you get motivated again. I think I'm at that point where I'm starting to stay committed with most of it. And I think that's like something that people don't really understand is like failure is very normal. I feel like in today's day and age, failure is not accepted, and it's really weird in that sense. Like everyone, like I said, like I mentioned instant gratification. Like I really like the line with J. Cole where he says like, I'm so used to instant gratification. And he like kind of like, it almost sounds like he's saying like Instagram. Like he's talking about like all this, like all these tools that we have that like promote instant gratification and like really don't allow us to like fail in anything. Cause we see all these people being so perfect. And we're like, another thing that I've always heard people talk about is like, we're seeing people who've planted seeds years and years ago and we see them bloom. And that's the only thing we see is when they've bloomed. And we've never see all the struggles they went through before they were successful. And I think like that just never gets showcased enough. Nobody wants to talk about all the setbacks that they went through or the failures or all the hard times that happened. And I think that's where people get discouraged, is that they've never really understood that that's totally normal and that you've just got to push through it.
Yeah, that's why I think like I love the idea of starting like a YouTube channel, but I also know how much work it would be and how long it would take to get off the ground. So that's why I haven't. But I think it would be very interesting. I think people would be interested to see like my journey starting like from like nothing.
Especially like behind the scenes of like what you're doing, how it's working, what works, that kind of thing.
Even like the daily day-to-day life. Because when you watch like a YouTube personality, you really only watch them when they've become successful.
Yeah. See, okay, that's the other thing that I've also like heard as well is like people don't realize that if you've ever discovered someone online, they're already successful, and people don't realize that. Like, doesn't matter how underrated or small you think they are. If you found them, there's a pretty good chance that they did something for that reason, whether it was one blown up video or whatever it was.
Yeah.
They've done something in a way that has made them successful, and we just don't realize it.
For sure.
So I think that's huge. But I think it would be really cool to see like the behind the scenes. And I think the other thing is too, is the reason why sometimes like even in music, we also get like the one hit wonders or like even in viral videos. I think the reason that happens is because those people haven't had the consistency beforehand. And I think if you have like already like a huge database of like videos already, like for example, in a YouTube channel, if you already have a huge database of like stuff you've already done and you've gone through the progress and like gotten better as the time has gone on and gotten, to a point where you're actually like good at what you do. I think it's important to have that database because then people can actually explore and learn who you are. If your first video goes viral, it's very unlikely that you can sustain that because you don't even know what you're doing or what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good analogy with the rappers. Lots of new rappers don't have very much talent because they just get a hit song and That's about it.
Pretty much it, yeah.
But yeah, I guess that leads us to our last topic,
Music.
which is music. Oh man, I gotta go to the gym still.
No, it's already
7:30.
7:30. Jeez, we've been going for 2 hours and 50 minutes, so pretty much 3 hours.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so let's, I guess, blast through this then, because I also have to eat dinner. Kind of hungry. But
So
what are we starting with?
So
Is this best album of 2021?
for
Is that
music,
what we're starting?
I think we'll go with best album of 2021. Now I'm gonna start looking on
I was gonna
Spotify
say,
real quick.
because-
I already know what yours is. Stop lying.
What do you think it is?
And it's Baby Keem's album.
It probably is, or Voice of the Heroes. I really liked Voice of the Heroes. Voice of the Heroes is such a good album. Man.
Slaps. That was like, I actually mentioned this a couple days ago to one of my friends, but I feel like a lot of albums are very unimpressive now. Like
Mhm.
I'm expecting a lot, but I don't get a lot.
I think I heard someone talk about how like people don't really make albums anymore. They just make albums that have a few good singles so they can just pop off. And that's a really big issue.
That's very true.
Because like because the issue is too, it's not even their fault. I think it's like attention span issue. There's very few people who can actually sit down and listen to a whole album. So having an album that actually tells a story or like that needs to be listened to throughout to actually like make sense, they're like a lot of artists are veering away from that because they know that that's never going to get across because most people will never even listen to all of them. They're going to go on Rap Caviar, find the one popping song, and that's all they're going to listen to off the album.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I think that's one of the bigger issues. And that's why people are okay with putting out a few misses on their albums because they know no one's going to listen to them anyways.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. And that's the reason why I never download whole albums anymore because so much of them are so bad.
No,
Yeah.
it's just awful. There's very few albums that I actually have fully downloaded on my phone.
Yeah.
There's very, very few.
So what would you say 2021?
Honestly, I would probably go Voice of the Heroes.
Nice. That's what I would go with too.
Like it's just like overall, I just don't think there was another album that had every song was so good.
I really liked and like the chemistry between Lil Durk and Lil Baby was
and the whole theme of the entire album made sense and it was just a good album and I think it was honestly one of the best collab albums to come out ever.
yeah, it's like Lil Durk was like Baby the voice, baby I'm the hero.
Yeah, exactly. Like that whole thing, like that. But like the thing is, they kept that consistent the whole album, so that was kind of cool to see. And like it was similar yet different. You know what I mean? Like the vibe was the same, but it was still different.
Yeah, they had a lot of good songs on.
So yeah,
and that's like one of the only albums that in 2021 actually like surprised me. I didn't even know it was coming out, and then I think I texted you about it, and I was like, and you already knew about it, but yeah, I really love that album, and I still listen to lots of the songs today. So
the only two albums that I actually listened to multiple times fully through are Voice of the Heroes and Baby Keem's album. Those are the only two albums last year that I genuinely listened to over and over again. Like I listened to Donda fully through, but the thing is I couldn't listen to it once. Like it was so drawn out.
Donda was 2021.
Yeah, Donda and CLB as well. Remember? I mean, that's not a top album. CLB.
Oh, Drake.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what you're talking about.
No, but like those were the two albums, Voice of the Heroes and Baby Keem's album.
The off season was alright.
Oh, of course. How could I forget? I completely forgot that came out. Those were the three albums I actually listened to multiple times. I just forgot because they came out way earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Those were the three albums that I genuinely listened to.
Okay.
Multiple times.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. What do you think is going to be the best album of 2022? I think we both have the same opinion on
Kendrick
this.
Lamar's album.
Everyone, if you like rap at all, you should probably know this already.
So obvious. The amount of people that are calling it mid is so funny because they're all people that listen to Damn and are suddenly like, "Oh, I am very much a Kendrick fan." No, you are not.
Yeah. And Kendrick and Damn was not even close to his best albums. It was all right.
Yeah. Well, it was I felt like it was a bit too mainstream. Like I feel like he leaned into the mainstream side of it, like DNA and Humble. Like Humble was such a mainstream song.
It was good though.
It was I agree, and it was less of a mainstream song than most rappers would put out. But I still felt like it leaned into the mainstream side, which is what I really appreciate about this album. It didn't really lean into anything mainstream.
It was just art.
It was just straight up art.
Yeah.
And like there was a few like turn up ish songs, but even those weren't like hype songs. Like they weren't like Range Brothers or Family Ties. I think
Family Ties is a great song.
That's what I'm saying. But I think a lot of people who are like, I'm a Kendrick fan, were people that listen to Family Ties and were like, oh, this is what he sounds like all the time. That's not what he puts out.
Yeah. Yeah, he rarely ever puts that
No.
out, actually.
That's not something he would do. And I was really appreciated the fact that he made something so artistic.
Okay, now what do you think would be your favorite album of all time?
Oh, that's a big question. I have never thought about that.
Probably gonna say like 2014 Forest Hills Drive.
Probably. It might be. It might be. But there's so many good. I mean, some of the Lil Wayne albums.
Yeah, mine is the Carter 4.
Yeah, I can see.
I love the Carter 4.
Such a good album. I mean, yeah, like some of the Lil Wayne albums, J. Cole's, like you mentioned, 2014 Forces Jobs is an amazing album.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, there's a lot of. I mean, some of old Kanye albums too.
Oh yeah, like
But,
Graduation
yeah,
and all that.
Yeah.
Even I love Yeezus.
I think a lot of people like.
A lot of people, it's very mixed. It's either you love Yeezus or
hate
you,
it.
yeah.
Exactly. I think, but most Kanye fans, I think, would agree this is a very good album.
Oh yeah, for sure. And what about favorite artist of all time?
Ooh. That's tough. See, I mean, I can give you top 5 right now if you want. I can give you top 5. I can give you top 5 all time would be Eminem,
Yeah,
Lil Wayne,
yeah,
J. Cole, Kendrick, and Kanye. Those are top 5. Pretty easily.
yeah.
I just don't know which one of them would be the best. It just depends because they're kind of varied.
Oh, it's
honest,
hard because they have all different styles.
Because they all kind of have exactly like J. Cole and Kendrick, I would say, are probably the closest.
Yeah,
But even there's definitely differences.
and then Kanye is just like
Kanye is such an anomaly. Eminem is purely lyrical and just wild in that sense. And then who else was left? Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne, he has everything.
crazy. Yeah,
He can sing. He can put out like the craziest bar. I love the one thing I love about Lil Wayne is like his like not stupid bars, but just like the most random bars. You know what I'm talking about, right? Every Lil Wayne fan knows exactly what I'm talking about.
my yearbook quote was Lil Wayne.
Yeah, so was mine.
Our real G's move in silence like lasagna.
Like no one's gonna catch that unless they like actually like listen to it so many times. And that's what I love about Lil Wayne is like I'm like wow, like I didn't catch that for so long.
Crazy.
And it's just there's so much stuff like that.
Yeah, I would say definitely Wayne and Kanye are two of my favorites.
Same. Yeah, I agree. I see. Here's the thing, though. I love Cole and Kendrick for the message and like how much they've impacted me in that way. In terms of an actual like rapper standpoint, I completely agree. I would agree with those.
Yeah.
But I feel like in terms of an actual impact, I would say J. Cole and Kendrick because that's just completely different. And then Eminem is also kind of just an anomaly, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, like I wouldn't consider him as one of my like top.
I have to give him top just for his like,
I
talent.
know, but I just
Like personally, I agree. I don't think I would either.
yeah, but you can't deny he's like an incredible talent, and he put out some incredible songs. But the reason,
But we also weren't there for his prime either.
I know that's the thing
issue too. Like I just don't think that's the reason I can't really relate with it that much either.
Yeah,
That's the issue.
I don't really love the last albums he's put out
No.
because they don't have much meaning anymore.
Which is that's another thing to talk about is like a lot of people argue that Pain makes a lot of good art. Oh, yeah. And that's the issue is that like then people start not liking out like when people blow up because there's nothing to talk about anymore.
That's true.
Like all the old Eminem like the Eminem show, like those had so much raw stuff on there that it's just like
Yeah,
wow.
that's true.
You know, and that's what makes them good.
I think listening to Kendrick's album,
That's what made me like this one too, like where he's talking about his personal, experiences and all the stuff he's gone through. I think it was really
and even the fact that like all the rappers now they usually talk about the same stuff, and to hear Kendrick not talk about like any of the same stuff was actually like crazy, and that just goes to show like how he's like an actual talent.
Yeah, he's an actual artist. He's not just a industry like person who just wants to make.
He's an industry baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, like he's like he's just making art, and I just don't think in this day and age that art is appreciated in music. I think it's more so how can we make the next hit song?
Yeah.
And I think that really ruins a lot of what could be good music.
Yeah, I would agree. And now next question, best upcoming rapper. I know who I would pick.
Who? I
would probably say Baby Keem has a lot of potential.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that was the first person that popped in my mind. Baby Keem. He's on Kanye's album. He puts out Melodic Blue. He's on Kendrick's new album like a couple times.
Yeah.
With what he's done, I think he has by far the most potential, and I'm really excited for his next album because what he kind of alluded to in the Melodic Blue, he kind of talks about like, but I'll talk about that in the next album where he's talking about like I'm gonna talk about like my struggles and like how he like started off.
That could be crazy.
And I think that would be so crazy because like we just mentioned, pain makes good art.
Yeah.
And like one of my favorite songs from him is what's that song where he talks about like where he's like two bus passes and I'll be fine. And he's talking about like he's like I asked God, he's like why this life you gave is so hard. I can't remember
I asked God.
That song. And I love that song because of how like raw that song is.
Yeah.
You know?
That's actually one of
like and it just sounds like a horseback ride. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the whole beat has like such a like
isn't it Scars?
Scars. Yeah. I love that song. And that's again, you know, there's beauty in pain, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Like especially like I love the last verse where he's talking about like, you know, I got no money to my name. I kissed my mom on her cheek and I like leave and I've just got 2 bus passes. I'm just thinking everything will be fine.
Yeah.
And like that's insane. Like just thinking about that, like that's insane. And I think stuff like that, like if that's a whole album, like that would be something.
Dude, and I think like this was a very experimental album.
And it was so good.
So if he finds like what he's really good at, which
I think he probably will.
Yeah, he I think he will. And it could be, I mean, again, like a lot of albums don't live up to the hype, but I hope that he can.
I think so, yeah. Because I think a lot of people are very hyped for the next album.
And it could have huge features on it too.
Well, because he's got the name, right?
Kendrick, Kanye. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I completely agree. And yeah, I mean, just there's so much potential with Baby Keem, right? And he's so different too. He's very unique in what he does. He doesn't sound like anyone else. His voice alone is so unique.
And he produces incredibly well.
Yeah. That was the one thing that really got me about the melodic blues. Everything was produced by him, almost everything.
I remember when you texted me and told me that, I was like, no way.
Because that's the one thing that blew me away about the whole thing was the production, all the beat switches, everything that was going on. The beat pauses were so perfect and everything was done so well. And I was like, who the heck produced this? And I realized it's him that produced almost all of it. And I was like, that's crazy. Like obviously not alone, but still the fact that he has so much influence, like because that's what made Kanye so good.
Yeah.
Is he was able.
Well, he originally started as
exactly, and the fact that because I think that's what really makes something powerful is when you can also be on the other side of it.
Yeah. Because
then you can really tailor something. Because Cole does the same thing too. He's huge into producing.
Yeah.
Kendrick, same thing. I think all the big names, if you look at them, they're all hugely into the producing side of things. And that's what makes them so powerful is because they're not just getting a beat from someone and like having to conform to it. They're able to produce the beat to conform with what they want to say.
And then there's someone like Eminem who had a legend like Dr. Dre.
Exactly. But they had such good chemistry. Exactly. Like my name is, I'm sure you've heard the story. Everyone's heard the story of how he just walked into the studio and he just had that beat and immediately he just starts going, my name is mine. And it just worked. And like, that's just how it popped off. And I think that's so crazy. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is there's one line from, I think it's from United Grief where Kendrick says like, I just saw Keem buy 4 cars in 4 weeks. I really like that line really hit.
And then he talks about like family.
And he talked about how he's, you know, like that same trauma is bound to like resurface and do the same thing. And basically he talked about how he bought like infinity pools he never swam in and like cars that he bought and like all this stuff. And he's talking about how like we all grieve different. I thought that was a really powerful song in that. Like that was so crazy. And like that's what I really liked is he talked about like how, you know, his cousin, you know, Baby Keem is kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
And yeah, I think that was really, really powerful.
So Baby Keem for the next up.
I think so, 100%. I think if he can live up to the hype of what he's done, and he like even on Kanye's album, like remember when he started off, everyone's like, "What in the world is going?" And then he started rapping, and you're like, "Oh, okay, like I respect it." Tame Impala. You were like, "I'm still outside. Like, what? What are you talking about? And then he starts rapping, and you're like.
Yeah, his verses flows.
That was crazy. Like there's one line that still confuses me to this day. When he said they're treating the Lord and Savior like renter's insurance. You know what I mean? I still can't really pinpoint what he was trying to say with that. There's so many different ways you could take that. You know what I'm saying? You know the line I'm talking about, right? Where he says people be treating the Lord and Savior like renter's insurance. You know what I mean? And that's what he said. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. Like
not paying?
Like that's what I was so confused about, because it can mean so many different things. Because what I was also thinking about is renter's insurance is optional. So like I tried reading into this song. I'm not even kidding. I tried to like genius lyrics say there's no explanation. And I was thinking about it, like renter's insurance is optional. So maybe he's saying like people don't like actually care about it. The other thing that he could also be talking about is that people only care about renter's insurance when something bad happens, because then they wish that they would have had it. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be so crazy. And the other thing, like you said, is like people just don't want to pay it. Like, you know, they don't want to like actually like focus on that. And I think there's so many, I just don't know what he really meant by that, but there's so many different ways you could interpret it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I was like, that actually, like, that's just crazy. Like, I don't even know what he was trying to say.
I love all the beat switches on the first one, Trademark USA. Trademark. It's like 838 got pulled over twice, had to go and switch plates. That's so goes crazy.
And even in Range Brothers, it's like 3 beat switches too. And like Family Ties, I believe, has a couple as well. So there's just so many. And I love Vent. Oh my gosh, Vent, the ad libs from Kendrick on Vent are so funny.
Yeah. Brother.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, and last one, most fallen off rapper.
Oh, like in what time frame?
Well, I mean, like last year or two. Someone who you thought was going to be really good,
but like completely fell off.
Yeah, I think I know.
Stana for Vegas is one. He totally, let's be honest, he totally fell off, did he not?
Yeah.
Remember when he put out Go Stupid and he had so many bangers with DaBaby and we were like, what's up?
Polo G, but.
Oh, well, he was on there and he actually had a very good verse and everyone knew that.
Yeah.
And so like, well, because there's so, but like he just fell off, and apparently there's an album coming out from him. So I mean, maybe he'll recover, because the two people that I thought were so similar were Stunna for Vegas and NLE Choppa, and they had such similar style. But then look at where NLE is now, and look at where Stunna is.
That's true. NLE's only like 18, dude. That's crazy.
That to me is so crazy. And he's so fun. Are you subscribed to his YouTube? Awaken Choppa. It's the funniest thing. He uploaded a video yesterday of where he had a Nerf war in Target. It is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh my god! And he gets kicked out. It's just so fun. Have you seen the song "Bust Down Rolly Avalanche" with Kai Cenat and NLE?
Yeah.
It's such a banger. Do you watch Kai Cenat at all?
I don't know.
It's a very good channel. I definitely recommend. But NLE, I think he just grew into something bigger. And I like "Letter to My Daughter" was such a good song, and I think he's just kind of tapped into, and like "Too Hot." Like he's just tapped into like
crazy.
He's tapped into a lot of different sounds, I think, and I'm really happy he didn't just stick with like the Shadow Flow 3 that he had going. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to think of a rapper who's fallen off.
Yeah,
probably because we don't remember them.
Yeah, that's true.
But
you know what's kind of like, I feel like Jack Harlow would kind of fit in that, but I don't think he's too big. You can't say he's fallen off because he hasn't. But I would say, specifically speaking about his most recent album, that was.
I like 2 songs off of it.
Which ones? I can probably guess.
Probably not, actually.
Really? What? No. Which ones?
You guess.
I was gonna say probably.
I mean, the first one, everyone likes it.
What, First Class?
Yeah.
I was gonna say the second one's either Dua Lipa, Nail Tech, or Churchill Downs. I feel like those are the only good ones. Is it one of those?
Yeah.
Which one is it?
I guess.
Nail Tech?
No.
I felt like you would like Nail Tech.
Oh, well, I mean, it's fine. Okay. Yeah, it's good.
Ooh, Churchill Downs or Dua Lipa? Probably Dua Lipa.
No. See, that's why you'd be surprised, because it's a Drake song.
Dude, but Drake actually went off on that song. Crazy. Dude, his sound effects, he's like, I spit on you. I was like, what? What? Do you know exactly the scheme he had? Like, he had crazy schemes.
He was super chill about it, but like, he was like...
I swear he was like, yeah. And he was like, I swear he was like speaking.
Yeah.
You know? And I love those songs. Like, Omerta from Drake is such a good song because he's just speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
And I love those types of things.
And Jack Harlow, like, he fit in perfectly with
But he felt like Drake out-rapped him 110%.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, somehow.
And I was saying, that's like the first Drake verse that I've liked in years. Other than Wants and Needs.
Of course.
Which is probably my favorite song.
Yeah, of course. We've gone over that many times.
Yeah.
But even there though, like he rhymes, like that's the issue that I have with Drake is like I don't understand why he labels himself as a rapper. I just don't see him as a rapper anymore. He's a pop star. And that's just a fact.
Yeah.
And I just don't see why he continues to, push on the fact that I'm a rapper. Like you guys should respect me. But like, dude, like you need to realize that you have not put out a good rap song in many years now.
Wait, didn't he have a song called Pop Star?
Yeah, he did. Where he literally talked about being a pop star. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that dude's trash.
And also when he put out Tootsie Slide, I was like, yeah, this kid's definitely a pop star. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way.
Okay, yeah, I pulled up the lyrics from Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Like when he talks about the Rolling Stones,
Mm-hmm.
and then he says, because we already know how they rock, they thrown stones. Whenever you getting bigger, there's growing pains.
Yeah.
I got enough pull to make the city start throwing games.
Yeah. I love the Monopoly line that he had about like,
I got my realtor out here playing Monopoly. How can I address you when you don't own property?
that was my favorite. That was one of my favorite. How can I address you if you don't own property? That reminds me of that one.
Ooh, there's I'm destined for the top, but you can't get a rise out of me.
Yeah.
Bro, that's
So good.
crazy.
But like that address me line, he's like, I'll GPS you if you need addressing. Do you remember that line from Views? I think I'll GPS you if you need addressing. That was one of my favorite lines.
And then there's man, you blank drop trash, you littering.
Yeah.
Oh my
See, like those are the types of bars I love that are like not even that intricate, but like they hit. And those are the types of bars I like you littering. And he's like, I can't remember what he follows that up with.
I'm over delivering to the point it's belittling.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
whole
the PTSD is triggering. The
Yeah.
profit is sickening. The stones is shivering. Came from the north, but I got hot as fuck, so ain't no shivering.
Dude, that whole
That's
I love that
crazy.
scheme because especially his delivery for that scheme was very good.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then after that is when he does the sound effects, I think. I love the sound effects. They're so funny.
Yeah, this is probably like one of the better verses I've heard in the past 4 years.
I completely agree.
And then, I mean, it's kind of like a cringe bar because it's so true that Drake's music is not relatable anymore. But
Yeah.
I'm getting so rich, my music is not even relatable. I blow a head up, it's an inflatable. Like, it's
Yeah.
true that his music isn't relatable anymore.
Very true.
Yeah. All I hear is tall tales coming from little men.
Hmm.
Yeah.
He called out everyone.
Yeah.
Like it was very like it was kind of refreshing to see that, to be honest.
So yeah, any closing words?
Well, we also still have to talk about the Migos.
Bro, I don't want to talk about
You
that.
don't want to talk about
I want to.
Okay, well, here, quick update. So basically, Offset from Migos has decided to apparently unfollow the other two Migos, Takeoff and Quavo, and so did his wife, Cardi B. So apparently there's some beef going on. And then today, Quavo and Takeoff released their own song called Hotel Lobby without Offset, obviously. So it's kind of curious. I'm kind of curious to see what happens. I mean, they were kind of talking about how they were going to be the one rap group that never splits up. Yeah, that didn't last too long, apparently. So, I mean, there's no confirmation that they've split up, obviously, but I mean, unfollowing them and like his wife unfollowing them and like all of that, like, I just don't see, how that couldn't be pointing to something, especially when they both just dropped a different song without him.
Yeah.
Offset.
Offset? Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
I don't know. That's pretty much it. We've been going for almost 3 hours and 15 minutes, which is crazy. We had a lot to talk about, and I'm glad we got through so much.
Yeah. We should do another one at the end of the month, or in 30 days when I'm finished posting,
Oh, that's true.
and see how.
How that went.
Yeah.
We talk about it. It could be a way shorter episode. I don't think we were gonna make that 3
Yeah.
hours.
And I mean, you don't even have to like post it anywhere. You can.
Mm-hmm. We could just talk about it.
Yeah, it'd be good. It'd be good talking.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on and doing this with us. And yeah, I think this is quite the podcast. And there's a lot to digest, a lot to talk about, and I think we did really good.
I hope everything made sense in there. There's
Hopefully, yeah.
I'm tired now. I can't lie. I gotta go to the gym.
Alrighty, man. Well, like we said, you'll get more energy after the gym. So,
Yeah. All right. Well,
alrighty, thank you.
thanks for having me, man. It was good.
Absolutely. And I will catch you all in the next episode. See ya.